Our first order of business is an approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Are there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest tonight? No, seeing none, we will move on to the singing of our national anthem. So if we can get the music queued up and everybody please rise.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. I am happy to turn it over to our acting CAO, Ray Osmond.
Thank you, Your Worship.
My apologies. We do need a motion to go into a workshop session for council. Councillor Andrews and seconded by Councillor Sherwood. All in favor? And motion carried unanimously. Now over to you, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, first of all, this is a pretty exciting day. Not only are we welcoming a new council under the worshipship of Mayor Lisa Post, but we are back in the chamber after, I guess, almost 3 years now, two plus years away. So it's nice to see all the faces in the chamber. Welcome, welcome. Exciting times. I know all the staff and organization are very excited to have you back and have the public back in the chamber and speakers in the chamber and so on. So great days for us. So on behalf of our very dynamic and strong and enthusiastic administration, I want to extend a very sincere and very warm welcome to the mayor, Mayor Post, and all the new councillors. Some of you are back, but you're all looking very new to me. So on behalf of all the staff, we really want to welcome you, and we are very much looking forward to the next 4 years under your leadership and to move things forward, if you would, in the town of Orangeville. I want to just introduce to my left, for those who have not met, the two GMs, GM Tim Koselek, who's our GM of Infrastructure Services, and to my immediate left, Karen Landry, who's our acting Corporate Services General Manager. And these two people you'll hear a lot from over the next couple of days and from their managers. I'm going to try to move things along quickly. Don't want to get bogged down too much. Hopefully I won't take up all my time, as I know that other people may need a little bit more time in their agendas. There is an agenda that you've all had a chance to look at over the last number of days. This will be a 3-day workshop. We will go into 2 evenings starting this evening. Hopefully we'll be wrapping up around 8:30 this evening, and we'll do the same tomorrow evening, and then we'll go into Friday morning, and hopefully we'll finish around 1 or 2 o'clock. We have a lot of information to cover. Some of the incumbents, of course, coming back will be familiar with some of these things, but I'm extremely excited about some of the new things on the agenda, particularly the strat plan, where it's at a certain draft form right now, and I'm quite excited about that, and I'm sure everybody will be excited when you hear what's happening with the strat plan. But I did want to also thank my executive assistant, Andrea Shaw, who's been working with the clerk's office quite a bit over the last number of days and weeks to prepare for this big opening here, not just a chamber, but to also you guys for a workshop. And we're hoping that you'll be very comfortable and you'll have a chance to take a few breaks. Breaks are very important, by the way, in this environment. So we're looking forward to that. So I want to thank Andrea for all the work she's done on the logistics for the whole entire process. And I want to thank the clerk and IT. Without these guys, we wouldn't be in a hybrid model. I want to say, though, that this is the first time, as I said, back, and we are now testing some new equipment. So if we do lose you once in a while here, don't be too concerned. We will get you back real quick, but we will be getting a few bugs out over the next couple of days. This will give us an opportunity to do that while we're in the workshop so we can deal with some things that are coming up that are new to our operation. So I appreciate your patience with that. Okay. Finally, this evening, you're going to hear from the corporate services side, and they will, once I'm finished, they will take over, after the strat plan, and that will take us into the evening, and hopefully we'll get things all covered off from corporate services this evening. And I'll start my presentation. I go to, okay, before I move on, I'm sorry, I missed something. Lots of things on my table. I was given a copy just yesterday for the first time because Andrea Shaw, again, working with the entire administrative team, has been working on a first time council reference guide. We have never done this. It's an e-guide, but it can be found, of course, in paperback. It's quite an extensive guide, but when one sees the guide and all the links in that guide, it's a tremendous piece of work. It's for council and for all administrative staff in Orangeville. I think is going to be one of the leading edge documents that we've ever produced. And Andrea's done a fabulous job with that, and she'd be pretty humble about it. But the fact is, when you get into this document, you get a chance to go into this document. Everything in this session, as an example, you can go into everybody's sessions. You can see all the presentations. You can see every policy, everything we're doing in the operation, all the heritage pieces. I'm sure Councillor Sherwood would be pleased with. Everything you want to know about Orangeville, afraid to ask, you'll see it in that document. So I want to say big kudos again to Andrea for pulling that all that off. It's a beautiful document for us to move forward, and I'm quite excited about it. Okay, now I'll move to my next slide. Sorry. So just briefly on the structure, I will just touch on the structure chart for now. All the various divisions will cover off their structure. Just a few eye points, if you would. We do operate under a GM model. Of course, we all answer to the mayor and council, but the GM model, there's three departments. We have the community services department, the corporate services department, and the infrastructure services department. Currently, we have 162, actually total, we have 327 employees in Orangeville, and we have 162 are full-time, we have 129 part-time, and we have 11 seasonals and 25 volunteer firefighters. And we have 14 retirees on our docket. So we're a pretty large organization in terms of our operation. One of the biggest challenges we have when you look at our structure is maintaining a staff capacity, and that's one of our biggest challenges I see going through the next 4 years is continuing to have a stable workforce and maintaining the capacity to deliver on quality service. So the role of the officers and employees of the municipality is to implement council's decisions and establish administrative practices and procedures to carry out all the council's decisions that you bring down. We undertake research and provide advice on an ongoing basis to council on all policies and programs of the municipality. We carry out other duties as required. That's a big 3 words there, other duties as required. That come up in the Act and other acts that we all follow. and the duties assigned by the municipality. The administration of the town of Orangeville is led by a position of the Chief Administrative Officer. I'm the acting officer right now. I want to recognize our leader and friend and colleague, Ed Brennan, who I'm acting on his behalf at this point. Ed is off dealing with a health issue, and we're wishing him all the best every day. And he's in our thoughts and prayers. So, a Chief Administrative Officer, I think when I came in a couple of nights ago during inauguration, I think Councillor Tess Prendergast put it right. I'm the only employee of council, and crazy position to be in, but that is the only employee, I guess, of council. But it's a great position to be in. So what's the responsibilities? Well, briefly, exercising general control and management of all the affairs of the municipality for the purpose of ensuring the efficient and effective operation of the municipality. I will add that one of the things I see is making sure that we strive for organizational excellence in all we do every day to ensure that we have strong foundation for sustainable and efficient delivery of services, from my perspective. Performing such other duties are assigned by the municipality. The onus is on the CAO to ensure that council is supplied with all the information they need in a reasonable and a complete and sufficient manner in order for you guys to make all the decisions and execute all the responsibilities and duties that you have. And we take that very, very seriously. For that reason in particular, I think you're really going to like this new reference document that I alluded to earlier. Under bylaw 076217, the bylaw recognizes the existence of this position, the CAO, and the bylaw relates to the policies and establishment by the CAO under 2018. So the corporate focus, if you would, is to carry out all decisions of council. Council in all of its meetings will pass, policies and procedures and bylaws and so on and so forth, and give direction to the CAO and through to GMs of all the departments. That's done on a council by council meeting basis. There's a corporate approach, as I actually introduced earlier. We have 3 departments. And our corporate approach is a GM approach. So we changed about 3 years ago, I guess now. We changed from a different structure and went into a GM structure, and we kind of streamlined our operation. But we have all total 15 different divisions under our structure, and that's how we operate our programs and services. We have an enhanced communications, internal and external, and customer service. I had to say, then in the last number of months, we've been spending a lot of time and effort trying to really ramp up, if you would, our communication strategies, and we've introduced new staff. I know there's one of the managers here this evening, Mallory, will speak, and she'll be here. And one of the things we really want to, I won't get into detail on, but we'll speak throughout our own presentations on, is communication and engagement with our public, our customers, with council and all the stakeholders in the community is extremely, extremely important to us. And when we look at that, you will find as we go through not just the 3 days, but as we go through budgets and those kinds of things, you're going to see where we kind of really talk a lot about communication and why it's so important that we as a municipality really are out in the community and speaking to all of our stakeholders and our residents and businesses and so on to move agendas forward and be collaborative and so on and so forth. So you'll see a lot of things going through the presentations the next 3 days that really speaks to that. And I think you're probably going to see some of that. Hopefully this evening you'll see the strat plan deliver some of that as well. Policy review and development. We spend a lot of time on policy review and development. My colleague next to me, Karen Landry, has been working on policies for the last number of years, and I had to say, having spent some time in the last few weeks working on the parks policy in particular, and the bylaw, it comes to you loud and clear about the amount of work that has to go in developing a policy and a bylaw and these kinds of things. So the Office of the CAO oversees these things that are being introduced before they come to council for ratification. But it takes a lot of time and effort, and that's a big role of the office. Efficiency and management, information technology and development, absolutely. I mean, it's something we have to do every day in order for us to function. Financial, well, you know, we have Treasurer Nandini Saeed, and she really does more than count the numbers. She keeps us on track, and we'll get into a few other things and talk about finance in a little while, but you know, she's an award-winning treasurer, and we're doing some fine things, and I will leave that for her to get into, but we're pretty excited about our financial side. If we don't make that work, of course, we're all going to be in a little bit of a tough spot. Facility space, we have lots and lots of spaces. I think we have a little over 35 or 36 actual buildings that we actually deal with in this community, notwithstanding all this park spaces and so on and so forth. But from a facility space perspective, one of the things that's come through loud and clear as we work in a remote and a hybrid environment is how we actually deploy our staff and how we deploy our spaces to accommodate staff and functions and so on and so forth. So we're seeing a lot of things evolve in that area. And I think you're going to see that get introduced more and more as you go forward the next few years. You're queuing on there, Andrea. Thank you. We do work on our emergency and business continuity plans. I know just the last number of months, we finalized all of our emergency plans are up to date for all of our buildings and for all of our operations. And that's a very important piece for us. And to all the managers that are involved with that and our fire services in particular, that spend a lot of time, and our fire prevention people that upwrite all of our emergency plans. It is a lot of work, but it's needed. And in this world we live in today, it's become very paramount that we get that right, particularly when we're dealing with the environment that's changing and climate change, those kinds of things. You know, it impacts the community, not just from emergency for a fire truck going down the road, but when a flood might happen or certain things from storms and those kinds of things. And our emergency plans are up to date, so we're prepared and ready to respond to whatever might come our way. Our organizational structure, I won't go into that. I'll leave that to the managers. They've done a fine job with their presentations, and they'll cover their structures. Staffing, again, I can't say it enough. We spend a lot of time recruiting. I know HR does spend a lot of time. They look at us sometimes with boggled eyes because we do quite a bit of this. But recruiting is not where we stop. Retention is probably the biggest issue we have. And you'll hear a lot about that in the coming days. Again, we get into the budget about our capacity, our ability to retain people is extremely, extremely important. And the ability for us to get the best expertise we can get in our operation is very, very important. And that's something we spend a lot of time at. And we've really raised a benchmark working with the HR and the various managers. I think we've raised a benchmark quite a bit in terms of how we recruit, retain, and recognize our staff. And one of the things you're going to hear me talk about going forward is making sure that we have a strong, engaged staff and a relationship with our staff, not just from the people in this room that are in a managerial level, whatever the case would be, or right to the front lines, right down to the casual, the person on the deck of the pool, the person on the lawn tractor in parks. All these staff are extremely important, right to the front end. It's very, very important that we have a relationship that's open and transparent and communicate, because it builds a strong organization and a strong administrative culture for Orangeville. And that will be very important for us, and you're going to hear lots of that going forward. And it really comes down to not just the capacity that the town has to deliver services, not just about staff, you know, all the infrastructure that goes with it, but staff, of course, are the key players, along with council. Strategic and sustainability plans, we are up to date. Staff have updated our neighborhood sustainability plan now, and we're moving forward with that. We have accomplished quite a few things on that plan. And I looked at Ruth because she shakes her head. She should. She's one of the leaders in that particular document, and she still is, of course. But she spent a lot of time and effort, and she's also spent a lot of time and effort chasing everybody to make sure that we're on target. And that's a very, very important document, and we use it quite a bit in our sustainability pieces going forward. And again, I want to thank Ruth for her work, and I certainly want to thank Kate in Infrastructure Services that's taken on that new role. Okay. And I probably would just get quickly into communication flow. Obviously, we start with council. Council, from our perspective, I always say to people, well, council, you're out front and center. You just take care of the community. You just stay out there and we'll take care of things back here. And, you know, there's a book written recently about CAOs. CAOs are basically in the shadows. We like it in the shadows. I like it in the shadows. So at the end of the day, I mean, I think that our role is not to be out front and center. Our role is to be behind you guys to support the council team. And whatever you need to get done and whenever you're out in the community, we need to be there to support you. But CAOs, by their very nature, and the CAO role is not one to be front and center. It's to be in the shadows. And that's where we function best. And we're here to support wherever possible. So you're right, Councillor Prendergast. Everything would go from you guys down to me, and then from me it goes out. It goes a lot faster than that, of course. I mean, it filters out to the GMs. And the 2 GMs or 3 GMs in the room. We have one we're recruiting for now for community services. And I'm happy to report that we are preparing now for interviews. We have made our final selections and we're down to interview process that we're going to kick off in the next little while. We just clued up our screening and we're quite happy. I think we got a really good group of people that we're going to bring to the table to have a chat with. And then, of course, it gets out to all of our managers, our 15 managers, including a CEO of the library, our fire chief, and so on, economic development, all across the table. And they're our key players and all the staff that they represent. So that's our communications. That's how things flow. And then, of course, overarching all that is our community. I mean, we make sure that our community is part of that communication piece. I won't get in too much into the public experience piece. I think all the managers have their pieces to discuss. Just briefly, you know, people are starting to use our report a problem on the website, using our website. As the council members that are returning will recall, we did a lot of work to update the website. The website is a much easier piece of, you know, of our operation to function within now, and I think is doing a great job. We will be enhancing it. You'll hear more about that going into budget 2023 from our communications manager, who was quite excited about that piece. Customer service, of course, is front lines customer service, but customer service is something that all of our staff are working on, and you'll hear more about that. Data Hornsville, our app database, again, IT, beautiful job, and you'll hear more about that in the next little while. And the CRM, and again, customer service and communication across all of our organization, and social media channels, which I have to say, our social media channel benchmark has been raised quite a bit, and we'll have to listen to the manager of communications because she'll speak more on that as we go into the rest of the presentation. Okay, and trying to before I get into finishing things up here. The strategic plan 2018-2022 is completed pretty much, and we'll get into a new one in a little while. But the current strat plan has 5 key priority areas: municipal service, strong governance, economic vitality, community stewardship, and sustainable infrastructure. And I got to say that working in that document over the last 4 years we've done a lot of things. This council can be very, very pleased with all the advancement we've had in all those areas. And I think what you'll see in a new strat plan is a continuation, and I think a continuing the momentum, as I like to put it, going forward. And the new process, of course, you're going to hear from in a little bit here now from Deloitte, and they'll be discussing the next process. I want to speak briefly, if I can, on the current and future priorities. There's a lot of things going on in the environment. We need to do work on advocacy for affordable housing. And we're going to be talking quite a bit about this because we got a lot of things going on, as you know, with Bill 23, and the managers are preparing now for a presentation to council on what we see going forward with that and how we should approach it, if you would. So all the managers, including finance and our planner and our IS people, are all working on that right now, myself, and we'll be speaking to that in the near future. Capacities within HR, within finance, being very responsive, our service levels, making sure our service levels are on target, and so on. Staffing, as I said earlier, is going to be one that we're really, really key on. to keep this organization stable and moving forward. So again, recruitment, retention, succession, and empowerment of our staff right to the front lines. Social issues that are impacting the community. Our community is being impacted by health and well-being issues. I see a lot of things in the community. It's, you know, the people living in the community are, you know, can take for granted the fact that we will plow the snow, so plow the streets, we will clean the streets, we will pave, we will put lines down, we'll pick up garbage and those kinds of things on the parks and those kinds of mow the grass. But, you know, there seems to be in our society, and I think we're going to see a lot of this talked about in the go forward, other demands on the community and what our role will be, either to advocate for or deliver services for some of the things going on in our community, not just in this community, but all communities are impacted by social things going on, social impacts in health, mental health, and so on and so forth. And accessing recreation as an example, and accessibility, inclusivity, and those kinds of things. And I think I won't get into that kind of detail, but I think you're going to see a lot more discussion around the table about dealing with some of these things that are impacting people in their homes. Communication, again, I won't reiterate what I already said in communication, but it is a big issue for us. Land use and infrastructure development, our future strategy, again, Bill 23, but also land use from a perspective that we only have so much land, and we want to take a look at, well, what's Orangeville going to look like 4 or 5, 10 years from now? How much land do we have inside of our boundaries? How do we develop those lands? You know, building facilities across the street like on Broadway, those kinds of things. Higher buildings, more density. How do we develop around some of the lands we have, like Humberlands, those properties? And you're going to see a lot of discussion around that. We're going to want to bring to the table and have council debate. And finally, I want to say partnerships and collaboration, they're the hallmark. They're going to be the hallmark of where we go. I mean, we're not a highland unto ourselves here. You know, we're not in a silo. I mean, Orangeville is a community that's impacted within and outside, and we need to be, I think, you know, intermunicipal relations and intermunicipal discussions and collaboration will be very key on our table going forward in order to be, again, sustainable from a overall community well-being perspective. Okay. I won't go into questions. I don't think I'll need to go into questions at this point, but if there's any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer them. And I'll leave it there. 30 minutes. Actually, no, 28.
Was there any questions from any members of council? Good.
Thank you very much. Okay. So what I'm going to do without any further ado is I'm going to call on Manager Ruth Phillips, who's a manager of our Economic Development Culture Division. And Ruth has been, I have to say, a tremendous leader and a lead in keeping all of us honest and on target with respect to the strat plan. And Ruth has been quite busy working with our consultants. And I'm going to ask Ruth to introduce the consultants in this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Through you, Your Worship. As most of Council will know, the town is in the midst of creating a new strategic plan for the organization that will establish the vision, strategic priorities, goals, and objectives for both staff and council over the upcoming 4-year period. The firm of Deloitte LLP was secured to complete the project, and with us this afternoon is Project Lead Senior Manager of Economic Advisory, Clark Hoskin, and Tessine Rana, Senior Associate, Economic and Policy Advisory. To date, an extensive background review of the town's important strategies, plans, and documents has been completed, and significant internal and external outreach has been completed as well. Our Deloitte representatives will provide council with an update of all that we've learned to date and outline the next steps required to complete the plan. They'll also be seeking your insights and perspectives to further inform the development of the plan over the next couple of months. Following Council's insights and input tonight, the Deloitte team will complete an input summary report that reflects all of the internal and external comments that we've received during our engagement process, and I will be forwarding that document to each of you within the next couple of weeks. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our consultant, Clark, and let him provide an update. I don't need to.
Okay, thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Ray, for inviting us here today to talk about the strategic plan. And let me just get our presentation up here. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, oops. Okay. Share that. There we go. All right, so Ruth did a great job of giving us some of the progress to date for the strategic plan. Tassine will talk a bit about the input summary report and some of the high-level issues in that report. And then what we'll do is we'll have a discussion in terms of some of the draft mission statements, purpose, strategic directions. And we're actually going to ask you to give us some feedback today on some of the initial statements that we've been able to prepare. And so we're really at the tail end of the phase 2 of the process, which was our engagement process. And so we're at our second meeting with you, this time in person, and it's a great pleasure to be here in person. And then what we'll do next is prepare that draft, and it will come back to you again after the holiday break. So I'm going to turn it over now to Tassine to give you a bit of an update on the input summary report.
Thanks, Clark. We'll jump right into the next slide. All right, so before we jump into the actual results, I'm sure everyone can hear me. Before we jump into the actual results of the input summary report itself, it's really important that as I'm walking through the next couple of slides to really make sure that we keep in the back of our heads that everything that we're going to be going through and all of the great engagement that we've had so far informs a SOAR analysis. And a SOAR analysis is the strengths, opportunities, aspirations, risks, and results with the town. And with that being said, it's also important to keep in the back of our heads these 6 key areas of consultation that we've had throughout the engagement process. And that includes, of course, our council and management interviews, our council workshop, our frontline staff survey, our community survey, our key informant interviews, and of course, our community workshops through our 4 sessions. That being said, I'll jump into the details on the next slide. So starting off with the feedback that we have gone back, we'll start off with our internal engagement. Of course, this includes feedback from council, management, and of course staff, which as was mentioned earlier, was definitely a very key part of our engagement process. So starting off with the aggregate of the strengths that we heard from all of our internal stakeholders, the top strengths that really came to the surface included the fact that Orangeville really has a very high quality of life. In addition to that, we have strong management and staff, financial flexibility, customer service, and of course, the general beautification of the town. On the other hand, when looking at ways to improve, what our internal stakeholders mentioned was just the general fact of hiring more staff, and that has been a topic that we know has been going on within the town in general. And that's in addition to the modernization of procedures, improved communication and customer service standards, as well as looking at how can we better local government relationships. Now, when looking at both the strengths and ways to improve, the underlying priorities that really came to the surface, including the fact that we want to complete the projects that are currently underway, support staff, improve service delivery, while also responding to residents and developing the economy in general. So that was a really high-level overview of the internal results that we got back. But moving on to the external side, the top strengths that really came to the surface from our key informant interviews and our workshops included just the general livability of the town. And that's in addition to the proximity to cities, and this is in particular to the GTA. And it's also really notable just to really emphasize the strength of the town when it comes to the good services offered from the town, in addition to the recreational opportunities, especially considering the size of the community. And of course, this is in addition to the general strength of the downtown core. On the other hand, ways to improve included ensuring adequate water and wastewater treatment, more specialized and diverse town staff, and also looking at traffic management and community relationship building. And on the topic of the availability of employment lands, another way to improve included annexing employment land to support growth. So the top priorities that came out from our external engagement included maintaining infrastructure, developing the community, formulating a legacy fund, fixing transportation issues, and of course, going back to that employment land topic, looking at making sure that attracting investment is a top priority. Diving a little deeper into the community survey, we asked the community to tell us 3 words that best describe Orangeville. And up on the slide here, we have an illustration of what we heard back. So in addition to being quiet and small, it was definitely noted that the town is growing, it has an amazing community, and is of course very friendly. And with that being said, when we asked our respondents, and we had just over 240, how would you rate the quality of life in Orangeville? 79% that they are satisfied. Of that 79%, 54% that they are somewhat satisfied, and 25% so that they are very satisfied. And I'm sure Clark would agree that that's definitely a very good news story. Up on the slide here, we go a little bit deeper and we look at a priority matrix. And this is essentially the top 5 factors from a really long list on what needs the most attention going into the next couple of years. And how we did this priority ranking was by looking at the performance and importance of a variety of factors. So in other words, if a factor has low performance or it has a high perceived importance, it will have a higher priority ranking. So our top 3 factors with this methodology in mind included the availability of affordable housing, access to local medical and mental health services, and employment opportunities. So next, we switch over to our business owners in the community, and with our business survey, we asked our business owners, how satisfied are you with the town as a place to own and manage a business? From this, we had 88% say that they are satisfied. Of that, 34% said that they were somewhat satisfied, and we had a whopping 54% say that they are very satisfied. It's also notable that when you look at this graph, the other 12% is only somewhat dissatisfied, and there wasn't a single respondent from our business survey that said that they are very dissatisfied. Again, a very good news story. Now going back to that priority matrix, but this time looking at the business priorities, our top 3 factors were municipal property taxes, availability of property for purchase or lease, and the availability of skilled labor. So that's a really quick overview of a lot of the results that we got back from our input summary report. As Ruth mentioned, we'll have a lot more detail on this in the next couple of weeks, but I did mention that we'll be wrapping this up into our SOAR analysis, and with that, I'll pass it back to Clark.
Thanks, Tassine. So the few slides that we shared with you today is really a very tight summary of a very large document that has a lot more detail in it, but I think it highlights some of the key areas. And so when Tassine mentioned about the SOAR analysis, this is the whole concept of looking at the strengths, the opportunities, the aspirations, the risks, and the desired results that we were able to analyze based on the feedback that we got through the engagement process and through analyzing documents and that type of thing. So I won't go through them all in detail. Tassine did a great job of really outlining what the community told us were the strengths, what they saw as opportunities. And then I think maybe one thing to look at is, the risks. And the risks in this case is the risks of not doing anything. If we don't do anything, if we don't follow a strategy, what are the risks? And what people told us were things like that, that we don't want to be a town that isn't forward thinking. We don't want to see projects that don't get completed. We don't want to fail to address community diversity. Those are the types of risks that people see if we don't think strategically. And so ultimately, the idea with a strategy is what are the desired results that people want to see from it? And that's how we help develop the next stage of the goals and objectives. So on this slide, you see the desired results being that we want to continue to see those high citizen and business satisfaction rates. The scores that Tessine outlined are very high, and we've done these types of studies and strategies in many communities, and you have a really good score. So the idea is to keep it up, keep that bar up there. So it would be a great result to continue to have those high satisfaction rates. Other desired results, continued prosperity, so high income levels. Also, from that investment attraction perspective, having more land under the town's direction or control would be another desired result, as well as more diverse housing, supporting our equity deserving groups rather, and keeping the downtown core very vibrant. And certainly take our hat off to you for the wonderful downtown that you have. So that's a bit of an analysis of kind of a SWOT analysis with a bit more oomph behind it there. Gives you an idea of what we see as we work on the strategy document. So what we'll talk about now is, and this is where we really hope to get your feedback, we'll talk a bit about the mission, the vision, the guiding principles of Orangeville, and show you some draft ideas and get your feedback on them. So just as a reminder, what is a mission? The mission is kind of the purpose of the town, and the town as an organization, as a corporation. What's your purpose as this entity that you are? And so we really want to determine what that purpose is. In the previous strategy, there wasn't really a specific mission or purpose in the strategy, but we're hoping that we can, using feedback from the community, give you some ideas. So here's a couple of options that we've prepared for you, and would love to get your thoughts on this. So the first option is we deliver municipal services that sustain a high quality of life and a deep respect for everyone in Orangeville. And option number two being we support the wellness, vibrancy, and sustainable growth of our community by delivering fiscally responsible municipal services. So they're a little different. One's a little longer than the other, but this is the idea of the purpose. And so any ideas that we can get from you in terms of some of the words that you really like in these, or if you like a particular option or not, or maybe there's a word that you don't like, it would be really helpful to know that. So I'll turn it over to your worship to maybe get some feedback from council about what they think of the mission or purpose.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'd love to open the floor for any discussion if there's a member of council who has a comment. Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. It is a delight to have your input at this point as we move through the various phases. For those of us who participated in this process so far, I found it to be engaging, educational, and I think the outcome is going to be rewarding. I do like option number two. It seems to be reflective of the times that we are in. There was a point that you had referenced, and you had highlighted about a SWOT. And typically a SWOT, for those that aren't familiar, is, of course, identifying the W. W is always something that either organizations want to admit about, acknowledge, and or ignore. Weaknesses. This was not highlighted, but at the same time, aspirationally, I see this is exactly where the organization is heading. And there's an expectation for members of our community that we're also heading down that way. No doubt the input that you've received so far, again, I don't have any reference from the anecdotal information that you've received. It would be nice to have some of that because I'd be curious to hear what members of the public have provided because, we hear as the frontline representation of the organization, we hear a lot. And we did hear a lot, especially during our campaigning most recently. And so that's, about as timely as you can get, top of mind, what people are hearing, what they're expecting. But I do like option number two.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. I'm not sure who was next. Councillor McIntosh. Okay, Councillor McIntosh, over to you.
Thank you. For the record, I like option one, but I know Joe likes to talk a lot, so he'd like option two. Just a quick question on the fact that Orangeville does need more land. You mentioned that in your presentation. How do you propose that the town goes about that? Annexation, or what were your thoughts on that?
Through your worship to Councillor McIntosh, I think the ultimate strategy will take some input from the management team and get some ideas as to how they would see that being approached. At this point, I don't really have a concrete answer for you. Really, we want to make sure it's a made in Orangeville solution to these aspirations. So stay tuned on that, and we'll get back to you.
Wonderful. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the delegate. So you're proposing a new mission statement. I believe in our last mission statement, we made reference to our historical charm. Is there going to be any reference to regarding our heritage?
So through your worship, there wasn't an actual mission statement in the previous strategy. There was a vision statement, and there was reference to heritage in that. And we'll be talking about the vision statement next.
Thank you.
Councillor Sherwood, did you have a preference to one or the other while you've got the mic?
I'm going to go against my colleague here. I'm going to go with option 2.
Was there any other additional comments from either member of council? Yeah, Councillor Prendergast, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the delegates, I definitely prefer option number 2 as it references our sustainable growth and also being fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, I actually agree, Your Worship, as well with number 2. So.
Thank you very much. For what it's worth, I like both of them, but I do prefer option 2 as well. The one note that I do like from option 1 is the deep respect for everyone. I think that is a really, really strong component. So if that could somehow get woven into option 2 as well, I think it would be then the perfect option, because that's what I think is missing from option 2.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Council, for that feedback. So we've made note of that, and we'll get to work on it in terms of the purpose of this mission statement. So the next part of the strategy is the vision statement, and this is really looking ahead, looking at what you as a corporation want to achieve down the road. As our boss Trudy, who wasn't able to make it tonight, often says, this is what you want to be when you grow up. So it's that aspirational, community aspirational concept. Now, in the previous strategy, Orangeville's vision was that you're an inclusive community that respects its heritage, natural environment, and small town appeal while embracing the future with a progressive and innovative spirit. So that was your previous vision statement. What we did was we certainly reviewed that, but also looked at what various members of the public and council were talking about and thinking about in terms of aspirations. And we also look at some other examples of visions from other communities. Often they can be short or long, but these give you a bit of an idea of some of the shorter visions that are out there. And so we came up with a couple of options here. So the first one is A, which is Orangeville is a sustainable, safe, and diverse community that is friendly and open to new people and innovative opportunities. And the option B for a vision, Orangeville is a self-reliant town that serves as the nucleus for the communities around it, providing housing, employment, services, culture, and recreation, and reflecting the diversity of Canada by hosting new residents, tourists, and investors. So you see one's long, one's short, and we'll certainly turn it back to your worship to get some feedback from council.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open it up to the floor again. I see Councillor Andrews has his mic on already. Go ahead, Councillor Andrews.
I'm going to keep it short. Councillor McIntosh, option A, to the point. I think vision statements should be just that. They're easy to remember, are not complex, but they do identify the complexity and the necessities of a community. And option A.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm going to also choose option A. Option B sounds great, but a little bit too wordy.
Any other comments? Councillor Stevens, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I agree with both my colleagues. Option A.
Councillor McIntosh, go ahead.
A.
Man of many words. Councillor Prendergast, he as well.
I also prefer option A. I would like to note that in option B, I like that it referenced Orangeville as being the nucleus for the communities around it, which I think is important, but a little too wordy. Thank you.
And I'm in agreement with everybody as well. I think option A is the right vision going forward for our community. Back over to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I see there's some action needed on my Wi-Fi here, so hopefully I can stay connected. Hang on a second. Okay, there we go.
Some extra security on our laptop, so it's just making us do a couple of things.
We can see your slide here as guiding principles, if that's helpful.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Just hope we can go to the next one. I have to get my phone for a second. Work for auditors, there's lots of extra little bells and whistles that you have to follow.
Once you're back in, it looks like you may need to reshare your content. It's showing that that's ended.
Trying to get my Oh, I think we've got it. Just give me a second. Okay.
While Clark's getting that sorted, next up, we'll be talking about our guiding principles.
It will come up there. All right. So, so in terms of guiding principles, these are often just values that that a community views as most important in decision making. And so, if we look at the values that were in your previous strategy, I talked about a community that's barrier free. You talk about community involvement and being responsible with taxpayers' money, and a variety of other values as well. Certainly, as we spoke to council management and the public, we came up with some values that are similar to these, but what we wanted to do is sort of summarize them in one word or so to make sure that they're a bit easy to understand and free. Can't get it to go to the next slide. That's all. Maybe Andrea could pull up there. I just don't know why it's not moving forward. Sorry. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. If we can move to the next slide and then the one after that. Okay, thank you very much. And apologies for that technical problem there. So in looking at the various feedback that we got from the public, and council and management and staff, we've kind of narrowed it down to about 5 principles or values. First being integrity and respect. Concept here about, working together, that there's respect among each other, that people work constructively and positively. So that integrity and respect being the first one. Second, customer focused. Certainly heard that loud and clear, and want that to be another principle or value of the town of Orangeville. Empowered, and this comes from 2 perspectives. One being staff being empowered, having the tools and capacity to be able to deliver great services, and also the residents feel empowered and that they feel part of the community and want to volunteer. A 4th principle, equity and transparency. So the idea being that people feel safe, included, respected, and that they feel they can have meaningful input, and that the decision-making process of the town is transparent and open. And then the final principle being sustainable and holistic. So a town that's forward-thinking, that's thinking about the environment, that has it embedded in its policies and practices, and that we take a broad approach town takes a broad approach to its decision-making, looks at the big picture, and thinks about the long term in terms of making decisions. So in the ultimate strategy document, we will have sort of, with your approval, of course, the idea is to have these 5 ultimate high-level principles: integrity and respect, customer-focused, empowered, equity and transparency, and sustainable and holistic. So certainly we'd be interested in getting your feedback, Your Worship, on these values and principles.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open the floor to my council colleagues for any questions, comments, feedback. Nobody's hands up yet. I have one item of feedback that I would add, and that would be under the equity and transparency component. I would probably make it read equity, accessibility, and transparency from 2 different sides. One being from the accessibility of services and barrier-free and inclusivity, but also from the accessibility of participation piece. So I think it feeds into both of your subpoints really well to add accessibility to that one. But other than that, I think the other ones look great. Any other comments? No? Okay, looks like everybody else is good. So back over to you.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. And then the next one after that. Okay, and you can go on to the next one too. So we have one slide under this area, and these are what were identified as council's most critical priorities during the last session you held with Eric Lockhart back in November, I believe it was, or not November, August, was it? Yes. So certainly what we did was try to distill these down into sort of 4 buckets, so to speak. So corporate capacity, speaking to the ability of the town and its staff and administration to have the capacity to deliver on what you've promised to do, exactly. Economic resilience, the idea of having that strong economy to be able to be prepared for the future, growth-wise and other points. Community vitality, the idea being that you want to continue to have that livability aspect and continue the great maintenance and the wonderful downtown core and other aspects that are important to community vitality. And then the 4th one around future readiness. So making sure you have those policies, the financial wherewithal, the procedures in place, the infrastructure in place to be ready for the future. And so that's what that area is. So in a moment, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, but the idea being is that what we'll do next is to take these 4 primary areas and build out goals and objectives from them. And some actions underneath each of those goals and objectives. But we need to have kind of for a number of areas, and this is sort of what has sort of emerged through the process so far. So turn it back over to you, Your Worship, to get some feedback.
Perfect. Okay, Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the way this is structured. I know that in our previous council term, for those of us that have been around the table and recall some of those priorities. This also is future forecasting and future reviewing. Or I like the last part, future readiness. This is preparing the community, preparing this organization to respond to the community and their needs. And I just like the way it is structured. It no doubt will end up having further input, be that from staff and others that you'll, of course, get additional input from, but I like the way it is structured. Thank you.
Councillor Andrews, any other feedback, questions, commentary from anybody? It's good. We're all a great start. So yeah, back over to you.
And we'll move to the next one. So thank you so much tonight for the feedback that you provided. It's very helpful to get that face-to-face input as to what you think of the work we've done to date. So the next steps include drafting that strategy and taking what we've talked about tonight and fleshing it out and adding more detail. What we'll also be doing is taking that fleshed out version to your management and asking them, is this realistic? How would you measure it? How do you see it work into your business plans? Just getting their feedback, because ultimately it will be up to them to carry out the strategy and make it happen. After that, we'll make some revisions to it again, and we'll bring it back to you to get your sort of final nod of approval and your final input on it. And then we'll be moving towards getting that wrapped up relatively early in the new year. So that's all we have to for you tonight, but certainly if you do have any additional questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Was there any additional questions from any members of council? No. I was wondering if there's any way you could send this presentation over to us, or if somebody could, just so we could, it's a little difficult to see it on the screen there. So there's some components that I'm sure we'd like to review a little more closely and potentially provide some additional feedback. If we do have any additional feedback once we've looked through, should we direct it to Ruth, maybe?
Ruth.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to have a break. Do we need a motion to take a recess? No. Okay, and back at 30 minutes. Okay, we'll see everybody back at about 5:35. Thank you. Everyone, welcome back. I am now turning it over, I believe, to Ms. Landry, who's going to go into the corporate services portion.
Thank you. Well, although this is not as originally planned, it actually works because I thought I should just make the comment of following Ray is like following Councillor Andrews in the order of speaking. So, right? So that it all worked out. Anyway, on a more serious note, I am really excited to be here tonight and honored for the opportunity to work with and support the corporate services team during this time. Earlier this evening, Council participated in an important phase of the development of the town's next strategic plan by contributing to the fundamental components that inform that plan. The corporate services team looks forward to supporting Council's vision and strategic priorities for the 2022 to 2026 term of Council. What does corporate services do? The corporate services team provides enterprise-wide support services to internal and external clients, using specialized knowledge and best practices in the areas of clerks and bylaw enforcement, led by Carolina Kahn, communications, led by Mallory, finance and customer service, led by Nandini, human resources, led by Jennifer, information technology led by Jason, who isn't able to be with us this evening. And thinking about corporate services, what comes to mind is a team that is supporting each other, takes great care in assisting its residents, is committed to modernizing services, and is fundamentally dedicated to the advancement of the town. Shortly, you will hear more about each team's roles and responsibilities and their respective accomplishments. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize all staff over the past term of council for all their hard work. We are proud of what staff has accomplished and are not surprised by the various recognitions that have been received. I would also like to highlight a few, and certainly not all, of the most recent collaborative cross-department accomplishments that have been achieved. Completion of the town's asset management plan for infrastructure assets, and the integration of various town plans and studies into a comprehensive budget document. Implementation of Dayforce, which is an employment life cycle management, payroll, and benefits tool. The planning and implementation of the 2022 election, inaugural, and as we are here this evening, orientation. The enhancement of internal and external communications through the use of online tools, and I know Mallory has many more ideas to bring forward in the near future. And the last one I'm going to mention is the completion of the employee engagement survey and the implementation of actions to address what is most important to our employees. I think this is a really important accomplishment, and I know that action has already been taken to work on those recommendations coming out of that survey. And through my meetings with staff to date, we have received very positive feedback on some of those recommendations that have been followed through on, such as the CAO's messaging. The corporate services team is committed to advancing council's vision and will focus on enhancing our culture by increasing cross-divisional communication and collaboration and celebrating each other along the way. Providing effective business support to internal and external clients through the enhancement of communication and community engagement. Continuing our focus on financial sustainability and asset management planning and implementation. And continuing to advance our digital transformation journey with a focus on modernization and process improvement. I want to say thank you. And now, before I do turn it over to Carolina Kahn to start with the clerks and bylaw enforcement overview, we are asking that any questions that you may have along the way, that you hold them just to the end of the presentations. And thank you. And Carolina Kahn, I know, has to shift positions here, so if you could just give her a minute, please.
Okay. Thank you very much to Madam Mayor and members of council for being here tonight. It's certainly an honor to be presenting to you today. I feel very short in this chair. I'm just going to sit up. Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. 1 second. Thank you. Some of us are vertically challenged. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our Clerkson bylaw team. So next slide, please. So our Clerkson bylaw team, I always think of it as a hub. We take information in from a myriad of sources, we assemble it, and we funnel it out. Our role is multifaceted, to say the least, and it's never boring. Our team works across the organization in almost everything that we do, and we're committed to providing exceptional service in each of our service areas. Our current complement of staff is, as noted on the screen, our Deputy Clerk, Tracy McDonald, Records Coordinator, Alexandra Graham, Assistant Clerk, Lindsay Raftis, Licensing and Council Services Assistant, Diane Stuckless, Records Assistant, Jacob Sparks, Bylaw Officers, Carrie Cunningham, Chris Johnson, Chris Taylor, and Peter Vaness. I am incredibly proud to be part of this team, and I'm very grateful to each and every one of them for their contributions to what we do every single day. Next slide, please. So our role, we plan and implement municipal and school board elections and council orientation. And this was a main focus for us in 2022, as of course everyone at the table would know. We provide legislative services. So what that means is for council and committees of council, we lead agenda management, we take minutes for meetings, we distribute and report council and committee decisions and directions when we track that. We coordinate the committee recruitment and appointment process, which includes orientation and ongoing training of committee members. We also look after records management for the town. We are responsible for the development and administration of the records management program, which includes the management of active and inactive records and transfer of records to the Dufferin Museum. We manage the town's licensing program, and this includes lottery licenses, restaurant licenses, fireworks displays, mobile food vendors, pet shops, hens, vehicles for hire, and most recently, towing services. We look after community standards bylaw enforcement, as established through various town bylaws, most notably some of them being parking, noise, signs, zoning, and property standards. And we also administer access and privacy requirements, which take the form of freedom of information requests, and we manage that process. And last but not least, we manage vital statistics, which means marriage and death registrations with the province. Next slide, please. So we divided our accomplishments into buckets. We put it under different umbrellas just to try to package it in a neat way. Hopefully it will make sense. So I'll start with governance. Under governance, some of our accomplishments are regulatory bylaw review. So this has included the holding of public meetings, stakeholder engagement opportunities, and the adoption of various bylaws, including pet stores, animal control with respect to hens specifically, COVID-19 with respect to social distancing and masks, election signs, a topic that I'm sure you're all very aware of, property standards, vehicles for hire, towing services, and most recently, delegation of authority. We also have done, we facilitated appointments to committees and provided legislative support. And this has included the coordination and production of agendas and minutes for 24 council meetings, 5 public meetings, and working with committee secretaries within our division and other divisions to provide for 57 committee meetings. That's 86 meetings in 2022. And in an election year at that, if I can mention. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we developed a framework for conducting electronic meetings of council and committees, including the review and amendment of the procedure bylaw to allow for electronic participation. Council will hear a little bit more about hybrid meetings going forward and how that will work over the course of the orientation schedule. And I'll move over to bylaw enforcement and licensing. We have implemented Report a Problem, or C-Click-Fix, which is an online tracking system for bylaw complaints and inquiries. And this was done in very close collaboration with IT. We participated in the provincial COVID-19 enforcement campaign. We've entered into service agreements with the townships of Millington and Malmer for the provision of bylaw enforcement services. And we have introduced and subsequently increased seasonal and after-hours parking enforcement. In partnership with customer service and IT, the development and enhancement of online services was another area of focus for us. And we were able to develop online application forms and payment portals, including for the licensing of mobile food vendors, restaurants, marriage licenses, and FOI requests. And there is more to come. It is the way of the future to be able to do things online, and hopefully we can continue to modernize how we do those things. Under enhanced business processes, we have implemented agenda management software for council and committees, as you know, because you're all users of eScribe. We have focused on digitization and centralization of the town's records, which includes legal agreements, policies, council reports, agendas and minutes, and of course, that's an ongoing process. We have a centralized bylaw database on our website that's accessible to the public. And we assist other divisions with respect to implementing Tom Rooms in their own divisions and expanding the implementation. And so far, we've worked with finance, fire, recreation, to name a few, but that list will be growing. We manage OPS records and we administer their FOI requests. And our record center has been restructured and improved, where it used to be largely a storage/records area. It is now a quite functional record center that has working stations and different areas where records can be looked at and organized. And last but not least, probably our biggest accomplishment this year has been the planning and implementation of the 2022 municipal and school board election. We had 19 plus voting opportunities. We implemented a new vote at home program, which has received a lot of positive feedback from staff on how rewarding it was to be able to go out and be a part of that program, but also from the recipients of the service on the resident side of things. We also enhanced, and it was largely new, the elections portal, which was with extreme close collaboration with IT, in particular the GIS group, which was a great resource for keeping the public informed, but also for showing all of the results at the end of the election night. It was an easy way to communicate and provide people with information at their fingertips. Then there was council inauguration, orientation, and then we've also established the Joint Compliance Audit Committee with area municipalities. Next slide, please, Andrea. So our future focus, our future focus is really about ongoing digitization and centralization of corporate records. This will be done through SharePoint, the continued implementation and enhancement of SharePoint, the town's new website to enhance access of information for council, the public, and staff. We will continue on with the review of the town's regulatory bylaws per council's approved work plan. And then we'll have enhancements to the bylaw enforcement program for the efficient and effective delivery and tracking of services. One way that we're hoping to do this is through software and the enhancements that we can find there. There's also the streamlining of administration of licenses and permits, and this is with the goal of reducing administrative burden for both the public and staff. And lastly, enhancements to council and committee process to drive good governance with a modern approach. And one of the ways we're hoping to do this is with the continued adoption of digital tools with respect to hybrid meetings and leveraging of the town's website, further phases of eScribe to include voting, closed captioning, etc. And with that, that concludes the presentation, and I'll pass over the microphone to Mallory.
Clerk. Welcome, Mallory.
Thank you. I feel very tall now. So most of you know me. If you don't, my name is Mallory Cunnington, and I'm the manager of communications. I'll just go to the first slide. So it's an honor to be here, and thank you for allowing me to talk to you a little bit about communications tonight. I think people think we have this ginormous team that sits behind all of our social media channels, but I'm here to tell you tonight it's just me and one of our coordinators that make that magic happen on social media. So we have a team of 2 right now. We are happy to have a graphic designer join us just in a couple weeks. And, you know, we deliver a lot of different services in terms of communications, and it's a really big job keeping everyone updated and informed, as you know. And so we do that with very small resources, but I'm really committed to kind of growing our team and improving the capacity with communications. Next slide. So our role, as you probably know, is to manage all of our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We haven't hit up TikTok yet. And, you know, that takes being the eyes and ears on all of our social channels. You know, it takes 30 seconds to put out a tweet, but, you know, you get responses and constantly engaging with people online and being available to answer the questions that they have after you post something on social media. We also manage the website. So websites are a beast. There's a ton of content on there. So we work with the different divisions to make sure that that's constantly updated with the goal of making sure that people can find the information that they want. Typically, when they can find what they're looking for on the website and it's easy and it's accessible to them, it may limit a phone call into our customer service or somebody coming to us asking questions if they can find information on their own. We also handle all the media relations, so that proactive. We're working with the media to get information on town initiatives through issuing news releases and pitching to them. And we also responding to media inquiries and things like that and working with the media. On average, we get anywhere from 5 to 10 of those a week from our local media. We take care of all the marketing and advertising, which includes transit advertising, print newspapers. We do the weekly town page, so all of that comes through our communications team. Corporate communications planning, which is a big bucket because we almost work with every division across the town to make sure that whatever initiatives they're working on, we have that same information that goes out. And so just an example on that, you know, we can come and work with a division. They'll give us a long plan of something that they're working on, and we have to take that information and come up with an easy to digest way that the public can engage on that. It can mean, you know, limiting a character count on Twitter in a couple lines. We have to, create something on Instagram that's limited to 90 seconds, come up with Q&As for council and some of our stakeholders to answer questions that they may get. We have to predict what will be newsworthy from that content and come up with a media relations strategy. So, it's not just copying and pasting something that's in a, report and putting it out there. We have to be on top of how people engage with that content on different channels. It has to be easy to find on the website and creating that content. So we take all of that, and there may be, 25 different ways to say something and really target that audience to make sure that, people can find what they're looking for when they engage with the town. Internal communications, so making sure all of our employees have information that goes out and they're updated. We do a weekly or a bi-weekly CAO update and send that out. We work with HR on employee newsletters. Graphic design, anything that's visually pleasing to look at is coming through our graphic design team. We do things like posters, advertisements, and make sure everything like that is clear and condensed, but also accessible, and that we follow the accessibility guidelines for those. Issues management, so just making sure that we're ahead of different issues and we're coming up with coordinated responses. So if there's something going on, we have the same type of message going out on all different channels, and just making sure everyone's singing from the same song sheet when we have different things happening at the town. Digital communications such as e-newsletters to make sure that we're keeping, town residents and our stakeholders updated with things that are going on. My favorite one is emergency communications, which is responding when, the community can be in quite a vulnerable state, whether it's a fire or emergency communications that they need to get access to information. Just making sure we're constantly in that preparation zone, ready for things like that to happen. We're always ready to put things out. And the great thing about emergencies is they never happen between 8 and 4 Monday to Friday. It's always a weekend. So we're always making sure we're staying on top of those and being accessible to the people who need to share that information. Next slide. Some of the accomplishments in the last council term. We completed the outsourcing of transit advertising. So right now, we outsource just the management of transit advertising to make sure that we are bringing back a lot of revenue on that transit advertising. We increased our social media following by 44% during the last council term, with big, strong goals to get that number up for the next by 2026. Of course, updating the public regularly through the COVID-19 pandemic. We launched a new accessible website. We communicated on a lot of large infrastructure projects such as Broadway Bricks. We issued more than 40 news releases in 2022 so far, so that's about a good average of how many we do on a regular basis, and we launched our e-newsletter. So our future focus is leveraging some of our cost-effective digital channels to get information out. We have these great social media channels that, don't cost a lot of money that people engage with. So just making sure that we're keeping those updated and nurturing those as much as we can to share information. We want to position the website as a trusted resource of information. So like I said, a big focus is making sure that that information gets updated on a regular basis. There's a lot of content on our website, and we have to work with the divisions and bring that up to speed and make sure that it's not just update your website and hope for the best, that we're doing that on a consistent basis. Two-way community engagement on projects that matter most to residents. So making sure we're listening to residents, what's important to them, getting out to them, and taking the information and making sure that it's accessible to them and in a way that they understand and they can get access to that. We're going to make sure that engagement opportunities are communicated to them. And getting residents involved in the municipal processes. I can say municipal processes can sometimes be technical, so it's our job as communicators to really take that, break it down, and tell them how they can get involved, what it means to them, and make sure that it is our duty to make sure that they understand that information. We're going to continue building strong relationships with the local media so that they can cover the stuff that's most important to residents. The local media is a great voice in our community, so making sure they're equipped with the right messages and stuff that's going on in the town so that they can continue sharing that and provide increased revenue back to the town through transit advertising. So that's our focus and our commitment to council from the communications team. You already have a very strong voice in the community. You're very out there with your residents. So our commitment to you is to make sure that you have information from the town to complement what you're saying out to your residents. And we'll make sure that you have that information for this council term. That's it from me. And if you have any questions, they're going to take them at the end.
Thank you, Ms. Cunnington. Over to Ms. Goen.
Yes, got to settle in. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me this evening and for all the other divisions as well. Madam Mayor, Your Worship, and members of council, I hope you are enjoying your onboarding experience tonight. And it's my pleasure to represent HR and tell you a bit about our division within corporate services. I can tell you that the HR division started in about 2001. The very first employee was hired in July of 2001, and I can't personally be that person. I'm actually the second person that was hired in January of 2002. So together, the two of us have developed this organization, and I became the manager in 2009 of the division. So we do have one manager, an HR coordinator, and then two assistants, an HR assistant and a health and safety assistant, as well as a senior lead in health and safety and HR. And she's able to help us in both areas of the division, which are both very important and very busy. We have a very strong team, and I enjoy working with each one of them, and anyone can go to any of them at any time with their questions or concerns, and they will speak to you, both staff and council. We are one group that's definitely behind the scenes at all times, and as Ray said earlier, staff's here to support all of council, and HR is here to support all of staff as well, from that one step behind again. One of our professional associations, the HR PA, has developed 5 key principles of what every human resources division or department should have. Professionalism, trustworthiness, respect, competence, equity, and fairness. And we feel we do bring these elements to the town of Orangeville. We also know that from a people perspective, it all starts with HR, and we are the heart of the organization, and that's why I use the heart symbol. Within the heart, you'll see all of the different things HR accomplishes for the town. Some of them are shown bigger, like recruitment and selection and health and safety, but there's lots of other things in there too. Engagement, recognition, diversity, accountability, being collaborative, and also having some fun and bringing that to the staff as well behind the scenes. I also think that corporate services as a whole is the heart of the organization. We're all there to support each of the other divisions with the work that we do. Our accomplishments over the last year are manifold, as you can see. I won't go into each one specifically, but I'll highlight a few that weren't mentioned earlier. We have been for the last 2 years participated in the WSIB Excellence Program, and 2 of my staff have done an excellent job completing the different modules for the program, which results in some additional funding that we receive from the WSIB. So we've been very proud of the work they've done advancing health and safety for our organization. We've also been very busy updating lots of policies for the town. It's been one area that's needed extra attention, and so we do strive to update as many as we can in a given year. I know that Ray is very proud of the pregnancy and parental leave policy from a recruitment and selection perspective, adding in the opportunity for some of our employees who weren't able to use the leave before be able to use it now. So it's very exciting for us. The right to disconnect as well as electronic monitoring were 2 policies that the government asked all organizations to have. So we've included those as well. I'm sure that if you have other jobs, you've seen those in your workplaces too. We also have continued to monitor the COVID-19 response, where we're at as a community, and anything we need to keep a watch on, having test kits and masks and everything available to staff whenever they're needed. So we keep an eye on those types of things as well. The salary market review was a big project for 2022 as well, and we've also had many new training, trainings this last month, especially around diversity, equity, inclusion, completing allyship training as well, which has been very popular with staff. To the next slide. So our future focus over the next year and onwards is definitely a big one. The first one there is attention, recruitment, selection, and attraction of employees. It's if you've probably heard of the term, all the different terms out there, that we need to really keep our employees and find new ways of developing them and training them, and developing the succession planning piece. So we really hope in the next year to bring along those plans and processes, and using the technology we now have to implement a succession plan in particular. Very excited about that. The implementation of the survey results we conducted this year will be a big part of next year and the following year. And really also finalizing our Dayforce modules to complete the payroll and HR piece of the implementation of that software. And continuous improvement is always important too, keeping up on current practices and bringing in new and unique ideas as much as we can. And that's it. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to hand it off to Karen Landry, who will speak for IT.
Hello, everyone. What we're going to do, just because of the timing, is if it's okay with members of council and Mayor Post to take questions on what you've received so far, and then we'll break for. Okay.
Thank you much, Ms. Landry. Is there any questions from members of council? Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
I do. Thank you. I'm not sure if we're going to have those that have already spoken just so that they're accessible and can be heard on the microphone. I know that we have 3 of the individuals that have spoken so far, so I do have some questions to each one, and I'm going to be hopefully to the point, so I won't be taking any of my other fellow members of council's time. So first question is to Madam Clerk. Is it possible for me to ask a question and make also a comment too? First of all, I wanted to congratulate Madam Clerk and your team for all the work that you did, not only during this period of time, the council term of 2018 to 2022, but also kudos to all the work that your team did with some of the revisions to the bylaws, the digitization, and also the election process. Looking at the future forecasting, there were a couple of things that kind of caught my eye, one of which is the success that we had at the at-home voting, but there has been any consideration, or will that be possibly passed on to council at some point to take a look at some online options as well, because I know that that was certainly highlighted in many municipalities across this province.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for those comments that stated, and I know they're excellent job. With respect to online options, yes, absolutely. That is something that is on our radar. It is something that is becoming more and more commonplace. We will be reporting to council at the appropriate time when there's when the time is we will be reporting to council when we need to make that decision for 2026.
Excellent.
So I do know that when we were picking the voting method for this time around, one of the things that we did mention in that report is that for 2026, we would definitely explore the option of internet voting. But prior to that, we're hoping to have a community engagement exercise to gauge the pulse of the community, to see what their desire is for it, whether they would want to go down that road, and for us to provide council with some of the research associated with internet voting. So yes, absolutely, it is on the radar, and it is something that we will have on our work plan to talk to council about more in the future. Absolutely.
Great. I will have another question, but I'll take it offline as opposed to at this time. And this is pertaining to the business licensing. But I was very pleased to see that part of your future plans are to, in fact, make it less, not to say it's been cumbersome, but less cumbersome and more of an interactive opportunity with those that may end up having to renew their business licenses and do so online.
Yes, absolutely. Whatever questions you have, we're happy to provide information. But yes, our focus is to modernize your processes and reduce the administrative burden wherever we can, using some of those.
Great, thank you. Madam Mayor, can I continue? I'm going to just, since we happen to have the other two managers in that area. Ms. Cunnington, thank you so much for your communications update. Very impressed by what has been taking place. Not only took place under the previous management, but also in your leadership right now. It is great to see the involvement, especially from a social media perspective. Of course, the community seems to be very much in the world is engaged. One of those social media outlets we know many of us are watching to see what's going to happen. I'm referring to Twitter. But of course, it happens to be one of those portals that many people are utilizing. And TikTok, I know many of us here are looking forward to the opportunity of doing some TikTok videos and expressing ourselves in a positive way. But do we have a social media policy?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Andrews, we do have a social media policy.
For the new members of council, again, for the sake of continuity and making sure that we're not overstepping any boundaries, I think that, as part of the orientation that we're going to be going through over the next couple of days, some of that will be no doubt echoed to not only those of us who've been around the table, but also those that are new to the table too as well.
Absolutely. So it will be reviewed. And if you ever do have any questions, we're just a quick phone call away.
Yes. Great. And last question is to our head of our HR department. Again, tremendous amount of work that your team does. I really enjoyed seeing that heart icon because it is, in fact, reflective of the organization and your leadership too as well. So thank you for that. I'm very impressed by some of the things that have been, of course, incorporated during not only 2022, but also during this term. But as Mr. Osmond has indicated, one of the challenges we have, in fact, is recruitment and retention. And looking at ways that we get the best people, that we do have the best people here, but also finding ways to keep them part of the team. And I know that other municipalities are finding themselves in the same situation, and there's poaching going on, and it becomes really problematic. So I know that we're in good hands. Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to, I guess, the Clerk's Department. 6 years ago, record retention was a big buzzword within the town. We didn't have the staff to get it done. We couldn't do it. Has that been done?
Madam Clerk.
That is a big answer. What I can say is that certainly it's become a big focus for the Clerks Division, absolutely. But I'd be remiss to say that there wasn't a lot of work still left to be done. We have a records coordinator that is extraordinary and very much enjoys what she does. She is joined by a records assistant, and between the two of them, they try to do a lot. There is still a big work plan ahead for them as we enhance the implementation of Tom Rums throughout the organization. So certainly there was a recognition for the need for it, but that is still a long road ahead as we try to get through all the different phases of what the records management program needs to look like.
Thank you. If I could ask one more question.
Absolutely.
This one's to Ms. Cunnington. I don't have an answer for this one. Is there any way that council, we seem to get all the calls. So if something happens in town that's a fairly significant event, we either get texts or emails or tweets. And I know eventually we are informed. Is there any way we could be informed a little quicker? I don't have an answer. I'm thinking in particular, one event was the Mill Street fire that happened a few months back. I woke up to about 10 different texts wanting to know what was going on. And I really didn't know at the time. Eventually, we did get notification of what went on and everything, and there was no fatalities, thank goodness. But I just wondered, is there any way, like, I look at hydro, I sit on the Orangeville Hydro Board, and as soon as there's a hydro outlet, we're notified what happened, what they're going to do. I just wonder if there was any quicker way of doing it. Thank you.
Ms. Cunnington, over to you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McIntosh. Yes, so when those types of things happen, information obviously is the most important in trying to get that out. I know specifically I responded to the Mill Street fire. It takes some time to get the right information out. So, you know, sometimes you may get a message from us in terms of a response time where it says, you know, we're working on it. Here's just a couple details that we have. And that's what we try and do and mimic that on social media where it's, I don't want to call it a holding statement, but it just is something to allow us to gather our thoughts a little bit and get the right information out. And it's also about just making sure that we confirm that information. So when and where possible, it's making sure we gather that information factual and get it out as quickly as possible to members of council and on social media. We're always looking at ways to speed that process up. I'm really passionate about emergency communications because I know when things like that happen, people are very vulnerable in the community. They may have someone who lives there, or we try and, you know, put ourselves in those shoes, and getting access to even a little bit of information is important. So when and where possible, we'll try and speed that up as quickly as we can. In order to speed it up, you may not get the full picture until, so you may just get a couple details, and as the situation unravels, we may have to get that. It's also coordinating, I know with the Mill Street fire specifically, it happened very early in the morning, so it's getting all the people, getting that response effort, and just a lot of people were still trying to respond to the situation in that particular one, but I do understand the importance of emergency communications, and we're definitely committed to getting that to you as soon as possible.
Thank you. I guess that's through you, Your Worship. That's what I was getting at. If we, you know, you may not have the full information, like was anybody injured and stuff like that. Just, you know, something saying there's a large fire on Mill Street in progress would be fine. That's all we need to know. And again, with hydro, they don't always know why. Sometimes the text will just say, we're currently investigating. So, you know, I'd be happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any other questions for members of council? Or any of these ones? No? I guess no. Okay, I think we are good. Thank you very much. And, oh, Mr. Osmond, go ahead.
If I could, just to make things a little easier for, there was a question asked about a policy, I think it was the social media policy. Just because I think that the document is so dynamic, the council reference guide, and I'm holding back here. I've just told the worship mayor that I didn't want to give them to him right away because you're going to get all the information before we tell you about it. But you can go in and you'll hit a button and you'll see all those policies. And so you're going to get that real soon, and it's going to become a really, really great document for your toolbox, and all the policies and all the presentations we're going through and the strat plans and all the stuff we've done. Is in that document, in that reference guide. So it's the first inaugural council reference guide. And it's going to be like your Bible, I think. From my perspective, I started reading it and say, hey, I didn't know that. That's really a nice piece of information to know. When you start going through about Orangeville and some of the heritage stuff that people are not really clear about, the next question for me would be to Andrea would be, how much of this can we get in the hands of staff, and how much of this can we really transport out to the public, because it's a really, really good document to use. I think you, excuse me, I think you'd be pretty delighted with it. So you will get it soon. I can figure out when. Maybe they let me have it tomorrow or something. I don't know. They're holding me back. But it is a great document. All these things you're asking is great questions, and I think you'll be able to go use it as a reference guide, or even the public asks you a question, you can almost go to that document and pull up. Yeah, here it is. I know what you're talking about. This is what you want. I think that's the kind of thing you're going to be able to use. I think it's a really good document.
That's great. Thank you.
I'll say no more about it.
Until you're going to give it to us. Thank you so much, Mr. Osmond. At this time at 6 o'clock, we're going to take a break. We will see everybody back in 30 minutes, 6:30. Thank you.
Over to Ms. Landry to talk about information technology.
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of IT, it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I am pinch hitting tonight, so I'm going to ask you to be patient and understanding. Thank you. So information technology has 9 full-time employees with Jason as the lead. We have Lena, which I see is on the line listening this evening. Addie. We have Jerry, who is with us here this evening. Thank you, Jerry. And we have Raglan, Evan and Laura out of the GIS area, Ravneet, and again, Mona, who is also with us here this evening. So in talking about the role of IT, I'm going to refer to the information that was given to me by both Jason and Lena so that I don't miss anything in terms of what they wanted to convey to you. So as per next slide, I guess, please, I'm supposed to wave, right, Andrew? Sorry, I apologize for that. So they had 5 areas that they wanted to focus in on to explain their respective role, which has to do with enhanced service delivery, operations, geospatial information services, which I always call GIS, or Evan and Laura, industrial computing, and cybersecurity. So under the enhanced service delivery category, the IT division works with all departments to align our digital services through procurement, project, and change management. It also involves the creation of business process documentation to assist with future technology changes and to allowing for the smooth transition of those services with staff. It also deals with ensuring that future technology solutions are consistent and integrate with our existing solutions. When we move to operations, there are many aspects of IT that are imperative to have a modern technology workforce, including security systems that are safe and secure, and that staff are trained on security best practices. And I know that Jerry is very on top of that, and as a staff member, we often are sent training modules to complete to ensure that we're aware of the security measures that we should be aware of to ensure that we do the best to protect our systems. And under operations also follows with hardware and software. And I think in this particular category, that is also a huge undertaking that I don't necessarily know that everyone understands in terms of what's involved in delivering that service to everybody, because you got to remember each staff member has unique and special responsibilities, which requires the use of different technology. The use of software applications to modernize and optimize our processes is, I think, fundamentally what IT has to do on an ongoing basis in terms of educating us on how we can modernize those processes. One of the notes that both Lena and Jason gave to me indicated that it's not just the implementation of those software applications, but this also includes the maintenance, and they refer to patches that are seamless to end users. So when they patch those systems, Jerry and Mona, I'll do my best here. I kind of equated that to when in my previous role as a clerk, that would look like an amendment to a bylaw, right? So they do the, is that fair to say, Jerry? Hey, okay. They also manage and maintain our network, and they also collect on a cost recovery basis from the broader public sector uses of the town's fiber optic network. Another important part, which I'm sure that you'll see in the future slide here, is just the importance and the need to have a business continuity plan as it relates to the recovery of those services, and if something were to happen, and what actions would need to be taken should something occur. The cybersecurity component, I just think it's important to touch on that just a bit further, because I think everyone here is aware of the environment that we are currently in, and we are also aware of the fact that there have been hacking incidents in the municipal sector. So there is you'll see in the upcoming budget actually the efforts and applications that we need to invest in order to protect the town's systems. Next slide, please. The accomplishments in IT. As I review these respective accomplishments, you will notice that each project impacts each department within the organization. Simply said, without the support of the IT team, modernization of the town's services would not be possible. I do want to just take this moment right now. Like tonight, we're sitting here and we're reaping the benefit of the work that's gone on behind the scenes for years during COVID and functioning in a hybrid model. And as Mr. Osmond did indicate earlier this evening, that we may have a few bumps along the road, but we're certainly well on our way. And I have to say that over the last few days, there has been a tremendous amount of work to make this happen. And tonight, Jerry and Mona are in the room supporting us to make sure that we do our best in getting through this. And thank you so much for that. So some of these accomplishments you will have heard about earlier this evening, and I think that just impresses upon you the fact that we work together and we have to collaborate, because everything that the other divisions or departments do, IT's there. So the new website, which we heard about, and I know that Mallory has great ideas about how we can improve that and resource it and make sure that the information is up to date, but it involved IT in its initiation stage and in the implementation of it. Council agenda software, which is eScribe, which I know you're all well aware of, and it was introduced to council during the last term, and then we had COVID. But I guess I will call it an eScribe reboot. We'll be on the scene soon. But again, who was with us when we looked at implementing that project and helping us along the way? IT. Council chambers, which I've spoken about this evening already. Working remotely, huge endeavor. And I think there is the need to look at when we started to work remotely, but just remember how quickly we pivoted to having our meetings electronically. Like I do believe, and Carolina can correct me if I'm wrong, but we were the first ones in Ontario to do so. So again, thank you to IT. Report a problem. This has been an excellent tool that we have used specifically within the clerks division, but I know other departments also use it. I call it C-Click Fix, but we encourage everyone to file any concerns or complaints that they have through that tool. That gives us the ability to route it to the appropriate staff member, and it also allows us to start tracking those common type of complaints and eventually report on them. Again, there was, a cross-divisional collaboration made that happen. The Human Resources Information System, and that is something that I spoke to in my introductory remarks, and that's what Dayforce. Massive undertaking across an organization. There's been a tremendous amount of work, not only by IT, but other divisions, including HR. And I know Mary Lou also helped on that project, and Crystal, I think, who is now working under the Community Services Division. And Lena has also been involved in that project. And there's been countless hours put into that. And I think if Jennifer's probably behind me, she's probably saying, Karen, there's probably countless more hours to go to reap the benefits that the system can provide to us as a whole organization. The citizen portal, and that is in the works, and I know that it's close to coming online. And what it will do, though, is it will allow residents to see services tailored to their own specific interests about their own properties. So I know the work is still ongoing in that regard, so stay tuned, there will be more to come. Next slide, please. The future focus. You know, in looking at these projects, I have to say that the future focus involves still a great deal more work. And I think it was one of the other managers said, there's still more to come. And I think that was when Councillor McIntosh asked with respect to records. The work is ongoing, but it is good work that's going to be done, and a lot of good work has happened so far. So the Enterprise Asset Management System, it is a new system that will centralize asset management, including work orders, service requests, permits, inspections, licensings, job costing, and budget forecasting. So again, similar to Dayforce, this will involve, I'm going to say, multiple years worth of work, but it's a start. Digitization. Now, this is working to transfer over 2 million paper-based documents to a digital format. There has been a lot of work done in this regard, and I think in terms of the type of records that citizens would be interested in are now available on our website. However, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done internally for records that staff need to access in order to provide the services that they deliver. Land mobile radio and public safety broadband network, currently replacing the legacy systems that are critical to the town's emergency services. And I know that there's ongoing work in that regard as it relates to also involving the other municipalities within Dufferin County. IT digital strategy. This is to provide an appropriate roadmap for the IT division to position itself for success in the future. So currently, we are at the stage of reviewing the proposals that were submitted with respect to this undertaking, and this will help guide us into the future in terms of knowing what to prioritize and when. GIS, continue to improve the assets, develop visualization tools to improve staff and citizen experiences. This is also going to play a key role in the asset management system rollout. And I think one of the things that I would just like to say in that particular regard is that if you ever want to witness someone who's really excited about GIS and have them show you everything that they know about it, Evan is your guy, and Laura wholeheartedly supports him, and he speaks extremely positively and is working very diligently with her to continue to move us forward in that direction. And then we also have a financial system review on the radar, which I know will help even ease the burden in terms of some of perhaps the, I'm going to call it non-functionality of our current system, to even make the whole process more efficient and gain better reporting mechanisms for our financial reporting obligations. One of the other things I just wanted to mention before I complete this particular section of IT is that under the industrial computing bucket that IT had mentioned as part of their role, there's a lot of work that's also being done with respect to the SCADA system, and that's what is referred to as the supervisory control and data acquisition system. This particular system is critical as it relates to operating the town's water services, and that's so that has the functionality for 24/7, 365 response, and it also has to operate so that it's compliant with our provincial guidelines. And that, at this particular stage, they're beginning the works to develop a 10-year SCADA master plan, so that together with our IT strategy will position the town in I'm going to call it a readiness state, and help us modernize everything that we need to modernize as it relates to the services that we deliver. And with that, I believe that's it as it relates to IT, but I'm going to ask Jerry and Mona if there's anything that they'd like to add on to, or we're all good? All good? Again, thank you. And without further ado, I'll turn the table over to Nandini to present finance and customer service. Thank you.
I do have the perfect height. I'm neither too short nor too tall, so we'll see how this works. Thank you, Worship. Through you to the rest of council, first of all, congratulations. Finance is the division which is very unique unto itself in the sense that we service not only our internal stakeholders, as you've heard from other divisions throughout tonight, may that be clerk, human resources, or communication, we also service external stakeholders, citizens. We also maintain liaison with upper levels of government, provincial as well as federal. Now, you will see me once more this week on Friday when I walk you through Finance 101. It's a 1-hour packed session. And you will also see me on December 5th when I will again have the pleasure and the privilege to submit 2023 budget. For tonight, what I would like to do is step away from the limelight, if I could, for a second, and introduce my team to you. So in front of you, what you have is an organizational chart for the financial division. We have 12 full-time employees. Not all positions are currently filled. There are some vacant positions. So let's start from my left to right. So on the very left, we have the deputy treasurer, who has 6 full-time individual under her, Mindeep Judge. So we have 2 financial analysts, 1 finance assistant position. We also have a payroll coordinator, a finance payroll assistant, as well as our accounts payable clerk. So that particular subdivision, if I may call it, is essentially the team that services literally all the other division within the organization. So that's an internally servicing team, so to speak. The next team over is our customer service, tax, and revenue, led by Connie Brown. Under her, we have 5 customer service representative. This is the team that services the external clients or the citizens. This is the team that takes the call, and I will be talking about customer relation management software that we have recently implemented when we get to our accomplishment. The next 2 subdivisions, so to speak, asset management specialist and senior procurement specialist. You have heard our acting GM talk about asset management plan quite a few times, and we are also undertaking implementation of an enterprise asset management system. So this particular position will be extremely vital in providing that support, not only just to finance, but throughout the organization. As the former councillors who came back this year would recall that this year we actually rolled out the 2022 asset management plan for all our core infrastructure assets. And I will touch upon that as I move through my presentation. And that brings me to the final position. By the way, these 2 positions are currently vacant and we are in the process of recruiting. So senior procurement specialist, again, we are going through a bit of a refresh as it relates to procurement policy and procedures. So again, this is a vital and a key role that supports the entire organization. So finance and customer service role. So I'm not going to go through each point. These are more for your reference purposes. So one of the biggest things that we undertake at any given year is preparation of our 5-year operating and 10-year capital plan. And that budget system or that budget process really leads into our audit process. So I get this question a lot, especially those of you who know that I teach on my spare time, that what is the correlation between budget and audit? Well, one leads to the other. So that's one of the biggest undertaking that the financial division takes every year. And again, we don't put together a budget in a vacuum. We work with all the divisions, all the department heads, the CAOs, our council. The next item on that list is management of taxation and utility billing. So we not only take care of our assessment base, which I will touch upon momentarily, we also, at any given point in time, we oversee 10,000 utility accounts. So that's a massive, massive undertaking. And as we go through these bullet points, one thing I really would like you to remember is that we are a team of only 12 individuals. And that actually includes myself. And I would like to go back to the point that our acting CAO made, that capacity would dominate the conversation as we go through our budgetary process for 2023. We also provide centralized customer service. So some of the calls that comes through this town hall, we are the first point of contact to take those calls. And as I go through some of our achievements and future focus, I will touch upon CRM, which is customer relation management. So before we move on to the next slide, one of the bullet points that I really would like to highlight is management of the town's property assessment base. At the end of the day, property taxation forms the fundamental basis of our own revenue. As it stands, town of Orangeville has close to 56% revenue coming from taxation. So it is absolutely crucial that not only do we manage that assessment base, but we protect it. And I will talk about that momentarily. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please. So let's talk about some of our accomplishments. So recently I have received some good news, and I do have our CAO's permission to to share that with you. And I think I've already let the cat out of the bag a few days ago. So as council is aware, we have been extremely lucky in terms of receiving accolades, not within Canada, but outside of Canada. Internationally, we have won multiple awards in the last 3 years. Our former mayor, Mr. Brown, once said that we probably would need a bigger cabinet to store all these awards. So recently, we have once again won the prestigious GFOA award, which is an international award. And this time around, we actually made history, Your Worship. And if I could take a moment, and I am getting a bit emotional because it is so historical in the sense that there are 8 recognition awards or 8 recognition criteria built within that award. Never in the history of Canadian municipalities winning that award has ever won all those 8 recognition, special recognition, and we have for budget 2022. I was at a conference recently, and I was one of the panelists, and Good News Travel Fast. And they asked me, they said, what does that feel like? And although I was receiving all those accolades, I would like to share with your council tonight that I received those accolades on your behalf, because we did not do this on a vacuum. Yes, it's true that the finance division was the lead, but it was a collaborative process, to borrow a word from Ms. Landry's vocabulary tonight. It was definitely a collaborative process. And I thank you, and I thank our former council. I thank Mr. Brannon's leadership, our former GM of Corporate Services, Ms. McKinney's leadership, because I believe that we are striding towards a future that not only will bring us more accolades from all around the world, but we are actually becoming quite the template for the rest of the province, if I could put it that way. So that is one of the biggest achievements for 2022. But guess what? We're hungry for more, right? Now that we have tasted it. So let's go through some of the things that I've highlighted on that slide. Ms. Landry has already mentioned about asset management plan in her opening speech. So we have so far successfully delivered the 2022 asset management plan for all our core infrastructure services. That is a requirement from the provincial government under OREG 588/17. And just to conceptualize and sort of wrap our head around it, the replacement cost of all of our core assets is almost closer to $1 billion, 967 million. As a professor, I have many counselors and directors and CAOs in my class. And I recently had a counselor, and if I could share this story with you. And she's actually from a bigger city, and their budget is in the billions. And she asked me, Professor Said, how many zeros are there in $1 billion? And I said, did you not ask that question to your treasurer, whoever? And she said, no, I didn't want to come across as not knowing that information. So just to contextualize that, sometimes we don't realize how big of a portfolio that we're managing. So the 2023 budget, which you will see on December 5th, is close to 130 million, the envelope, including operating and capital. We have recently, as Ms. Landry mentioned, that we have recently rolled out organization-wide human resources information system. One of the things that we were able to implement is a town-wide payroll system that has given us the opportunity to streamline our payroll processes. The other one that I would like to quickly touch upon, because I did mention this during the beginning of my presentation, is the CRM. And that is near and dear to everybody's heart, because at the end of the day, we get together and we do all of this. We stay up late at night and sit through these council meetings, because at the end of the day, the mandate is to provide service to our citizens. And this particular software, which again, I probably should give kudos to our former GM, Ms. McKinney, and to borrow inspiration from your speech, Deputy Mayor Taylor. She was the reason that the town now has a very comprehensive strategic digital transformation planning. And this was part and parcel of it. When this was rolled out, finance volunteered to be the guinea pig, and we have seen tremendous success out of that system. I've already talked about the importance of protecting assets assessment base. So again, just to give you an idea how much of an assessment base we are protecting close to 4.4 billion. 4.4 billion, that includes residential, industrial, commercial, just to name a few. I already mentioned that we are currently going through a refresh as it relates to our procurement policies and procedures. We are going to be leading the second phase of asset management plan for all the non-core assets very soon. And finally, Ms. Landry mentioned about the implementation of the enterprise asset management system, which again is a collaboration between IT and finance. Please. So what does the future hold? And top of that list is customer service. Because at the heart of it all, it's all about our citizen, it's all about the public, that we have taken an oath, whether from your chair or from my chair, to serve. So that's what's on the horizon right now. Earlier today, I was listening to the strategic plan that council is undertaking. So one of the key focus of finance is to extrapolate the strategic plan directives, because at the end of the day, the budget document is all about bringing together all of our other guiding documents into one place, right? Continuous improvement of financial information system, which Ms. Landry already touched upon, and I've already given you a couple of examples. Protecting and defending towns' assessment base. I will speak about this ad nauseum, because absolutely at the end of the day, the more assessment base that we protect, the more tax dollar we protect. Refreshing investment strategies under the new market condition. I'm just going to leave it at that for today, because I'm saving some of these for Friday's conversation as well as for the December 5th tabling. Monitoring market condition as it relates to inflation and the upcoming recession. We're also making sure that we maintain our credit rating to make sure that our debt to equity ratio are always at an optimal level. And at the end of the day, I finished my presentation by what I initially started my presentation with. At the end of the day, the division finance not only service internal division and stakeholders, but we are also in a unique position to service our external stakeholder. With that, I will take any question from council.
Is there any questions for members of council? Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Anyone else?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. This is in fact for Ms. Syed and also Ms. Landry. So this is as we had with the previous group, where we had the three managers. Ms. Landry, you referenced, of course, one area that certainly has been brought to many municipalities' attention, which is cybersecurity. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the update. We are in very good hands with the people that we have. They are experts in IT and truly appreciate all that they do to keep the continuity and the connectivity and everything together for us. From a cybersecurity liability insurance perspective, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot tonight. I know that we're going to have some updates from our Madam Treasurer and other departments later in this orientation and training later this week. But in your opinion, do you feel that we are in a good spot from a cybersecurity insurance perspective? Because I know that many municipalities, many of these individuals outside of our organization have upped their ante and will continue to do so.
I think we're in the best spot we can be at this given time. However, I don't think that it's something that you can sit back on, if I can put it that way. From an insurance perspective, we're required to meet certain obligations in order to obtain insurance. So we constantly have to, I'm going to say, check those boxes off the respective checklists in order to be insured. So I think with that in mind, together with the IT strat plan, we will continue to do our best to protect the interests of the town as it relates to cybersecurity. And I know that will also include ongoing training of staff and members of council to ensure that we do our best to prevent an attack.
Thank you. May I continue? I see that Ms. Syed has, I'm not sure if you were going to, it looks like you were going to respond to that too as well. But
If it's okay with Ms. Landry, if I may add a little bit to it, because you did ask about the insurance piece.
Right.
So one of the things I can put your mind at ease, last year when we were going through, we were ahead of the game, if I could put it that way. So we did see those threats in the market. We talked earlier about SWOT analysis, and that was one of the threats rather that we have identified earlier within budget 2021 and 2022. I don't know whether this council is aware, a lot of municipalities around us are actually self-insuring themselves right now when it comes to cybersecurity because of the increased cost of it. So the cybersecurity insurance backing that we have, we actually went outside of our current vendor who provides insurance, and we were able to get some competitive rates. And both Mr. Hall, our manager of IT, and myself, we were part of that negotiation. So I can, and again, I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Hall here, we were extremely diligent and extremely ahead of the curve in terms of ensuring that we have protective cyber security insurance at play. So hopefully that puts your mind at ease for now.
it does, and I know that many of my members of council who may be familiar with this process, having that comment is, in my opinion, comforting to hear tonight. Challenge that we have is, of course, we don't know what is going to happen next, and we have to be prepared for it. We sound like we are. May I just have the question for Madam Treasurer, unless there's someone else that had a question?
Go ahead.
I know that you're going to be sharing more later this week. You used the R word. And for those of us that are close to the financial world who monitor what's happening, we've had others within the different levels of government also make reference to the recession world or the recession that could be forthcoming. What impact will that have to the organization?
Thank you for the question, through your worship, to Councillor Andrews. So we are not there yet.
I know, but as you've indicated, we're always trying to be prepared. So
Right. So there's a bit of a misnomer. And again, as an educator, I love to make sure that we all have the right definition of inflation and recession. So recession doesn't necessarily mean the cost of things will go down. It actually freezes the cost of goods and services. What happens as we move from inflation to recession, but before I even answer that question, I think what is unique, what's going on right now, because from a macroeconomics perspective, every 8 to 10 years, as you can appreciate this, countries or economies will go through mini inflation or recession. What really made this particular inflation so big is the fact that we were coming out of a pandemic that was then further exacerbated by the war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions because of that war, in other, global unrest, made this particular global inflation that much more inflated, if I can use that pun. So we are still going through that inflationary process right now, and Bank of Canada is increasing or hiking up tax rate to control that. So I'm not skirting your question. I'm just giving a little bit of a preamble. So what do I think will happen during the recession? During the recession, what predominantly happens is there's a scarcity of goods and services. So it's not necessarily the prices come down. It's just that the growth of the GDP, the growth domestic products, gets stunted. So imagine we have one platter of food. I'm a tourist, so sometimes I give food-related analogies. So imagine there's only one platter of food in this room, and there's all of us who are very hungry. So that's what recession is. The access to goods and services will be extremely constricted. Now, the correlation between a superinflation is thereby the opposite of a super recession. So how are we going to react to that will depend to quite a few things. Sustainability of our financial envelope. I was extremely happy and I was cheering inside when all of you were opting for option 2 for the strategic plan that talks about financial sustainability. The other thing is, clearly, we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a provincial envelope and a federal envelope. So it will also depend on how the provincial government and the federal government will, in the next few months, look after the financial sustainability of the province as well as the country. And again, I'm saving some of these talk for Friday and for December 5th, because one of the latest legislation that has been rolled out is Bill 23, that to an extent constrains development charges. That is one of our financial tools vis-a-vis which we balance our capital budget. So what's going to happen in recession? Unfortunately, Councillor Andrews, usually when I'm appearing before council from home, I have that crystal ball. Today, I don't have it in front of me. So stay tuned. And as always, I'll make sure that I'm reporting to you in a timely fashion.
Thank you so much for the detailed answer.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Deputy Mayor Taylor, and then Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. What are we calling you? Did we establish that? It's good? Fine. So through you to Treasurer Syed, I'm a Taurus too. That doesn't mean you're hungry. It means you're stubborn. That's what it means, right? So a couple questions, if I could. You kind of pushed the ball down the road, but you said this, and now I'm curious. You talked about your staff. So you have 12 folks. You said there's capacity issues. So in the budget next week, yes or no, you're asking for more people?
The budget is coming before you on December 5th. So capacity issue is, as Mr. Osman said earlier today, and if I can reference to his introductory remarks, capacity issue is something that we would be facing throughout the organization, not just as it relates to personnel, but as it relates to other areas. Will I be asking for more staff? Deputy Mayor Taylor, I would humbly request and respectfully request that we wait to have that conversation until December 5th. At this point in time, I think capacity issues is not just related to financial capacity. I think it's an organization-wide message that you probably will hear around the budgetary process.
Okay, to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've never heard somebody skirt a question so eloquently before, but I will be.
I appreciate
will be
that.
patient and wait. The 56% of revenue for Orangeville that comes from taxation, relative to the rest of the province, is that good? Or is that, where should we be? How do I ground that in something that says if that's fantastic or not?
That's a good question. Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Taylor. That is actually a very good question. So how do you benchmark that? Because we're so different. We are similar, but we are still very different. So first and foremost, we really have to dissect that question to ground that. And as you have said, how do you ground this? So for example, if I'm comparing myself to, let's say, City of Brampton, that's not a fair comparison, right? So we really have to compare ourselves within our
Cities our size.
Our own weight class. And then even within our own weight class, some of the things we have to look at is where are we located, right? Communities to the south are very different than communities to the north. And then we have to further redefine ourselves by seeing what are our economic outlets, right? So if I'm comparing myself to a similar size city, but they're more agrarian in their economic development or their economic prosperity, then that's also is not a fair comparison. So for us to do that kind of benchmarking, we really have to define the variables and then go from there.
Would it be possible, as part of your presentation on the 5th, to understand cities our size, like a Woodstock, a St. Thomas, whoever else would be looking at, just to see if that's good or not? Maybe we understand what those percentages are for them to understand if that's good or bad.
Again, through Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Taylor. So I do have a 1-hour presentation scheduled for Friday. It says Finance 101. And the focus of that presentation is taxation. What does that mean? How do we go about it? What is the understanding around it? So after that presentation, if you would still like me to bring something like that to you, I would be more than happy to do so.
I hate to push the point. I'd just be curious. I mean, you brought it up as a point, and it doesn't, it by itself, it doesn't mean anything to me. So if there's a way to understand what that point means, then I'd be grateful. Again, not trying to be difficult. It's just, I don't understand what that means at this point, other than the fact where the revenue comes from. So it'd be great to ground it if we could. And then my last question is you referenced the new market conditions, and then you also said, don't ask me about it because I'm going to talk to you about it on Friday or December, whatever it is. But you've said all these interesting things. Can you expand on that? Like right now, for example, we do have investments in some fixed funds, and we're doing quite well on them. Is there additional things for us to consider? Are we going to buy Tesla with the taxpayers' money?
Elon Musk would be very happy now that he's losing money on Twitter. Again, through your worship to Deputy Mayor, again, I would like to give you a high-level answer at this point in time. I'm not an economist, so I can pinpoint the exact market condition. But what I can tell you is that inflations are interesting time because they're winners and losers. So for example, during inflation, Bank of Canada, as I was replying to Councillor Andrews, they hike up their interest rates. So that's not a very smart time to borrow a lot of money. But conversely, that's an amazing time to invest. If you're sitting on a lot of cash or liquid cash, which we have recently through the sale of ORDC. So we happen to be sitting on a lot of money and so we have invested. So really it depends on from which angle you're looking at it. So inflation could be, if you have to borrow a lot of money, it's not a good time, but if you have a lot of money to invest, it's an amazing time. So I think I was alluding to that more so than anything else. I would never claim to be an economist or anything like that.
Ms. Syed. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Your Worship. This question isn't to anyone in particular. It's in regards, I guess, with IT, the land mobile radio network that you talk of. I strongly believe that this should be a county-led initiative, not through the town. And I say that for a number of reasons. It's something that should be county-wide. Also, the smaller towns like Melancton and places like that will never, ever buy in. So the only way to do it is through the county. So I think I'll be talking to my counterparts to my right here, and we'll see if we can't push it through at the county level. So that's one item you can strike off the budget. Thank you.
Is there somebody want? Yeah, Mr. Osmond, go ahead.
Yes, please, Your Worship. Thank you. As a good comment, Councillor McIntosh. In fact, we met with all the fire chiefs in the county, and you're absolutely correct. One of the big issues we have with that network, that mobile system, is in fact that a lot of the smaller municipalities don't have the capacity to take it on. We're prepared to move forward tomorrow, and quite frankly, from a risk perspective, we need to. So what we're doing now, in actual fact, next week we're meeting with Grand Valley. The IT manager, myself, and Grand Valley and fire chiefs. We have met with all the fire chiefs, but we need to, we see a big problem. And the big problem is, again, Orangeville is large enough and has the capacity to move forward. The other part of this whole equation is grants. And we have the ability to apply for the grants to start the process. However, there is a problem between what the county's role is. And we need to have that conversation. And I think what's going to come out of the tail end of this thing, the back end of this thing, we start talking to the smaller municipalities, is they don't have the capacity. Who can help us out? We can look at it and say, hey, we'll bring the leadership. We've done the legwork. We can provide the leadership, but we don't have the dollars to fund what happens to the other municipalities. That's a good discussion, and you're absolutely correct for the county. And that's one we're going to have on a few tables, but that one in particular.
Is there anybody else who had questions? Okay, looks good. Thank you all very much. I think next up we are calling up Ms. Fraser from the library. Yes, come on up.
Thank you. I'll sit down in just a sec, okay? Good evening. Yes. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. Congratulations to you all. I'm Darla Fraser, and I'd like to begin the presentation speaking about library services. Somewhere, I think there's going to be a slide. I've had the privilege of working in this role since 2010. I'm proud of the staff and the services we provide, and the community would like us to do more. Your Worship, if I may, I'd like to start by introducing the board members that are here with me tonight. Thank you.
Please do.
We have Library Board Chair, Mr. Bill Ray, and Public Board Member, Sherry Marks. Thank you. Okay, I'll sit. This is going to be hard. Okay, I'd just like to take a minute to point out some of the nuances of this organizational structure. Here in the town of Orangeville, the library is treated in many ways, in many respects, as a division of the Community Services Department, and the relationship works very well. That said, all public libraries in Ontario are administered under the legislative and regulatory framework, excuse me, set out in the Public Libraries Act. Operations of the library is governed by an independent board. Excuse me. Council selects the members of the library board, sets the budget, then turns over governance of the library to the board. This is a unique arm's length arrangement as the library board is not a committee of council. It's a bit complicated, but it works well here. And I will share that Ontario Library Services is actually publishing, soon to be released, an updated guide for municipal councillors on the PLA that is expected in the next few weeks. Thank you so much, Ms. Nyman. Much appreciated. Cheers. Next slide, please. Oh, I did have one other thing. I was going to mention the library has 8 full-time and 20 part-time employees. And regardless of who's governing, next slide, please. Library services benefit the community in many ways. OPL wants to build community by offering not only a safe, welcoming space, but a vibrant, dynamic space for all to come together and discover new things, be inspired, find themselves in stories, create their own stories, soar to new heights. We are committed to changing to reflect the diversity of our community. We are reviewing programs from an equity, diversity, and inclusion perspective, addressing systematic and institutional bias. We have invested in truth and reconciliation training for staff, and we are delivering new programs working with partners to action the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. We want to do more to serve the needs of the disadvantaged, the marginalized, and the special needs groups that have historically experienced discrimination. Everyone is welcome at the library. We want everyone to experience a sense of belonging. We are poised to embrace the future with a progressive and innovative spirit. We want to contribute to a stronger and more informed, engaged Orangeville. On October 1st this year, the library board launched its new branding and strategic plan, outlining a roadmap for the delivery of innovative and dynamic services that respond to the aspirations of the community. Our vision is that the library will be a place for everyone to connect and discover, where learning and possibility allow each member to soar. These 3 simple directions say it all: connect, discover, soar. We believe the library can help the community come together and learn from each other, discover new things as we all soar to new heights. This is our promise for the future. In the past, the board has simply upheld the municipal values. In formulating this plan, the library identified their own set of values. Starting with inclusivity, we have curiosity, lifelong learning, intellectual freedom, and last but not least, trust. We will act with integrity, accountability, and transparency in our delivery of excellent services, AKA, we'll do what we say we're going to do. Our new logo is a visual representation of all these changes and a subtle shift in focus from collections to connections. We brought along some booklets, our public presentation of the plan, and I'd just like to point out that on the second page here is our positioning statement, and the library put together a video bringing those words to life. I wish we had to put that on there, that it's available online on our website. Our tagline is books are just the beginning, because books are important to our community, but libraries today are about so much more than just books. Go to the next slide. Certainly, the implementation of the recently adopted plan is our #1 project. The other two current projects noted on the slide will aid in the success of actions defined in the new plan. The elevator's replacement at Mill Street requires the building be closed to the public till probably mid-2023. It's most unfortunate, but necessary to ensure accessible customer service by removing all the barriers that we can. The establishment of a makerspace. We heard the community would like more programs and technology. We believe that with the right staff, the makerspace will deliver on both of these requests. The objectives spell out how we plan to achieve our goals, and I'd just like to share some recent programming achievements. One was the Community Engagement Initiative, the Poppy Project, where the community came together and lovingly handmade more than 3,000 poppies, which were displayed on the clock tower earlier this month. Recently, the library hosted a panel of speakers for Latin American Heritage Month. This panel provided an opportunity to learn from people in our community about the unique, diverse aspects of Latin American culture. We also have a very successful After Hours Write Club happening right now, a creative writing group facilitated by local expert Anthony Carnival. I'm not sure if anybody else is aware, but Anthony has great words. He's a great community advocate, and I'd like to quote Anthony saying, "More than ever, we need to reimagine the world we live in. Let's do it with language, laughter, and one another." Life is complicated. Writing isn't. All we can do is try. And this is just a few examples of wonderful programs that our staff deliver. On the calendar on our website, you can find the guide to all our programming. And from there, I'd like to say, in addition to library services, 2 years ago, I gained the privilege of working with another amazing team. And if we could go to the next slide, please. Crossing guards. This is also unique to Orangeville. I manage the school crossing guard program, which is part of the Community Services Department. And for those responsibilities, I report directly to the General Manager of Community Services. Road safety is a concern and priority across the province. Orangeville is no exception. Crossing guards are an important aspect of pedestrian and road safety. They are living traffic commerce. My hat goes off to them because that job requires strength, stamina, and courage. All kinds of weather, all kinds of kids and families. Anyway, have I sold it yet? Anybody interested? We are looking for more crossing guards. A plan to update and revise this program began in 2020. And if you remember, that's when COVID hit. So it was a crazy time. There have been many changes already implemented, including the establishment of a full-time supervisor for this team of 34 guards who cover 24 intersections, guiding vehicular traffic to ensure safe pedestrian crossing. Tina Elric is our supervisor, and I know she's excited to guide us through. Take the next slide, please. Current and future projects, which most importantly, but most complex, is the development of a warrant process. These are criteria by which future stations and changes will be processed. This requires both vehicular and pedestrian counts at various times throughout the school days at all locations from all directions to understand our current baselines to establish new ones. So work has started on that, but it's a large undertaking. Anybody out for counting cars? And happy to help with that. A training program is being established both in town, and Tina has been working with the Ontario Committee, who's also looking to deliver on a more global for Ontario training program. Plans also include becoming more actively engaged with the community, with public education and maybe even programs with library staff in the schools or the parks. I think public education is an important part to this program and something that we can build on in the future. That's my last slide, but I would just speak briefly to some of the challenges that both teams are facing, and it's capacity, staff, and resources. Well, actually, for the library, it's space, staff, and resources. These are scary times, and labor disputes all around us. Inflation is tough. Public services, part-time staff are especially vulnerable to the challenges of 2022, including rampant inflation, a looming recession, and the ever-present COVID threat. I have almost 50 part-time employees working hourly on the front lines, dealing with the residents every day, up close and personal. And they've had a tough time over these past years, and anything we can do to support them would be great. Our current staff at the library are wonderful, empathetic, kind, and caring. They're trained navigators to help you find the information you are looking for. We fall a little short when it comes to technology. We could use more IT support, couldn't we all? New services, new skills, and more means more. More costs more. Anyway, in closing, on behalf of both my teams and the library board, I thank you for your time and attention. In closing, just a gentle reminder that library services and crossing guards support the municipality by creating informed, inclusive, and engaged communities where individuals can connect to each other, with each other, to discover new ideas, and we can all soar to new heights. This community has demonstrated their resilience and willingness to support each other. I am humbled to be at their service and yours. Happy to answer questions if there's time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fraser. Was there questions from anybody? Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for that great presentation. I am an unabashed supporter of yours and the library, so just like to share that straight out. I think you guys do wonderful things. I just wanted to comment on a few things, and then I have a question. So first off, love the new logo. Very simple. I'm sure a lot of thought went into that. I think it's really well done. The Poppy project was beyond brilliant. It was one of the most emotive things I've seen in our town in the 20 plus years I've lived here. So kudos to you, Ms. Austin, your team. I was just so impressed, and it was such a pleasure to drive by and see it. So thank you.
I will give credit to Laura Austin for bringing that idea.
Yeah, she's
forward.
amazing.
We were happy to help her, but she was the driving force.
Yeah, I think the whole piece about what the library is and the way you've articulated it, it resonates with me and it makes a lot of sense. And as I understand it in a very simplistic way, it's all about inspiring learning and personal growth via a public enterprise, right? And utilizing that. And I do know Anthony, and if anybody's interested in that writing course, he's brilliant. He's a great writer. I think the fact that he's affiliated with you, it makes a lot of sense. It's a perfect location for him and for the library. I guess the last thing is I'd love to say thank you to the board. I love the picture on the back. It's not the most photogenic group I've ever seen, but it's a great group of individuals, and I think collectively you guys were a great board. One question about capacity and then something about crossing guards, if I could. So the need people thing, I tried to pin the treasurer. The need people is interesting to me. Are you short people because you don't have enough people? Like, do people leave? Or did something material happen to change your business model that has created a need for more people? So if maybe make it more simple, if you had 50 people prior to COVID, do you still have 50 people today and you need 54 people? Or did you fall to 46 and you just need to get back up? Like, are you asking for incremental people? And if so, what's the causals of that?
Supposed to do any spoiler alerts on the
No,
budget.
but you guys this is the second person who's brought it up.
Ms. Fraser, over to you.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Taylor. I'm not sure,
It's something you want to wait on?
it's not two different answers for two different teams. Is that fair?
Sure.
So with the library, what we're finding what we're short of is not bodies, but skills, certain skill sets. And with the crossing guards, it's bodies.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. Madam Mayor, ask one more question. Just on the crossing guards in particular, I may have missed this. I didn't realize that we were doing, is it new with the vehicle count? It is new. It's new? Anyway, I didn't realize we were doing it, but I just wanted to say, I think it's a brilliant idea. It's the perfect use of a resource that's already there. And we're having issues with the warrant process and the vehicular count and just how that's all going in terms of safety. So the very fact that we're going to utilize that body that's already there to do something that the town needs in terms of service, I think it's really quite creative and really well done. But I didn't realize we were doing that. I don't know if we knew that from previous term or not, but so I'm so impressed. I think it's great.
That is a current and, well, we've just started on the project. It is the plan, the new warrant process. Through you, Your Worship, sorry. We have started some counts. They haven't been done in a long time. We've had some education from infrastructure services, and it is just a matter of time and bodies to get that work done. And that is a manual count at all of the intersections that currently have crossing guards working there.
Well, again, I just think it's a great spend of resources and well done to Public Works and to yourself. So kudos. Thank you.
Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I have a couple of questions, one of which is very similar to Deputy Mayor Taylor's. I want to thank, again, your Library Board Chair and Vice Chair for the work that they have also done, in addition to your staff. I don't want to repeat anything that's been said, but except congratulations for all that you've done with the new branding and everything else that's going on with the library. It is a community hub. I know that many in our community have talked about that, and it really is part of the heart and soul of our community. And I'm hoping many more people will be using Mill once it's reopened. On the question that Deputy Mayor Taylor had asked regarding the warrant process, I too am intrigued, and I'm pleased to see about the utilization of existing staff. You talked about the connection to infrastructure services and the process and it being a manual tracking. Is there a digitized version that you could end up, like an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, just putting that in? And how are you going to use that information other than just a traffic count? And where I'm going with this is, of course, conversations that you, the mayor, and Deputy Mayor Taylor have had regarding the safety of your crossing guard personnel. The warrant process is going to identify the number of vehicles. It may identify more specifically the type of vehicles and the location. But one thing that it may not be doing is identifying the nature of the driver. And I'm wondering if that is something that we should precariously put our crossing guards in that particular point of view, is to identify if someone is in fact abiding by the law or not. There have been several examples I know where I just do not want to see one of our crossing guards somehow be confronted or somehow hit. And there have been some circumstances, as you know firsthand. So maybe as part of this warrant process, it's going to be data that's going to be helpful for, of course, relaying to, I believe, police services. But, where that goes is, of course, it reciprocates with the police services, saying that this is a high volume area. We have people that are not, in fact, following the rules of traffic, and what they're supposed to be doing is abiding by. Of course, when a crossing guard is, in fact, at a specific location, stopping and waiting until they have the all clear. So I look forward to seeing a little bit more and hearing a little bit more, but I'm hoping that that is something that might be part of the data recovery or the data implementation, is to address the other piece that we have spoken about.
Ms. Fraser, can you comment to that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Andrews. You're absolutely right. There are a number of factors that go into determining the warrants themselves, and the vehicular and pedestrian traffic counts at the, I think, 5-minute increments are just part of the data that goes into, and it is indeed an Excel spreadsheet that has been developed at the Ontario level. We're going to learn about it on Friday with the updated guide for Ontario Crossing Guard programs. And so those counts are just part of the criteria that gets somehow melded together to come out with these baselines, or I'm looking to the general manager of the infrastructure services to help me with my words here, because traffic, I'm not up on all my language.
Mr. Koslak, did you have something to add?
Yeah, through the chair, it'd be for the warrants for it. And I think, like you said, the pedestrian traffic and the vehicles are just two of the aspects you'd want to look at as part of it. And it'd be something we can discuss, looking at, see if we can track if somebody's not stopping at a stop sign or not obeying the crossing guard, and be able to see if we can mark those also when they're doing the traffic counts. So we can work together on that too later, Darla.
Thank you. And through your worship, I would agree. The crossing guards are experienced. They take control of the intersection. They're great with the kids. The drivers are crazy. But the drivers are an OPP issue, and we do reach out. And I know Tina has had a number of conversations which have resulted in greater police presence at some of the intersections. I wasn't kidding when it takes strength and courage. So just a reminder for everybody to obey the rule, the safety rules of the road, and it's important to keep everybody's safety. And yes, even if you're in a hurry, that waiting till that crossing guard gets to the other side of the intersection is not will be okay at the other end.
Councillor Sherwood, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to Ms. Fraser. We know that the library provides many programs and services to the community. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, during the operational hours at both locations, do you provide to the public opportunity and service for it to be used as a warming center or cooling center during extreme weather conditions?
Ms. Fraser.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood. We are welcome. Public are welcome at all times. It would be if the town came to us and asked us to open extended hours, we certainly would. But I believe the cooling and heating station for the town is identified as the recreation center. And I think that's about. We could ask Mr. Osman. However, I believe it has more to do with after hours and housing people in an emergency, perhaps over extended periods. So,
Your Worship, yeah, I wasn't necessarily asking you to expand your hours at all by any means.
So always.
Just that you are open to the public, and just want the public aware that if there's extreme weather conditions, that they are allowed to be able to use that facility. I know we try to promote using the recreation facilities, but I also want the general public to know that during extreme weather conditions, during your operational hours, and by all means, I didn't express you to expand your hours for that. Thank you.
Ms. Fraser.
My mistake, and yes, we encourage everybody to come in, even during other infrastructure downtimes or service interruptions. We saw a great uptake on services when one of the major communication systems was down. Rogers was down, and the libraries were packed with people accessing the Wi-Fi.
Ms. Fraser, just for the benefit of the new councillors at the table, could you explain a little bit about the service that we provide to other municipalities in our area as well, and how those agreements work?
Certainly.
Thank you.
The Orangeville Public Library is governed for just the town proper, but we do provide services to the residents of the neighboring municipalities. And with the new neighboring municipalities, we have an agreement where the councils will pay for any membership taken out by a resident in their municipality. We have finally moved to, in the last few years, we moved to where the councils would receive an invoice from the library as opposed to the individual having to pay out of pocket and get reimbursed by the municipality. So there is a fee for any households seeking the services of the Orangeville Public Library. And let me be clear, the library services are free to everyone to use. What comes with the fee is membership, and what membership provides is borrowing privileges. Everything else in the library is free to use to anyone.
Thank you. Is there any additional questions from members of council? Yeah, Councillor Stevens, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship. Actually, it's to Mr. Taylor or yourself. With regards to the crossing guards, is there communication with the OPP now if we do have concerns or issues?
I'll defer that one to Deputy Mayor Taylor.
We haven't had anything formal, but to Ms. Fraser's commentary, I mean, when there has been issues, the police have been involved, and that's exactly the process. So if there's anything that's going on, you should phone that number for the OPP, and unfortunately, I don't have it off the top of my head, but the 800 number and deal with them directly. You know, it doesn't go to town staff, it doesn't go to council, it goes to the OPP, and it should be immediate. Don't wait, report right away, and report often, to be honest with you. Right. And if a variety of people saw that issue too, a variety of people should publish. Like more is better than less, right? Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Stevens?
Sorry, yes, thank you.
Okay. Was there any additional questions from members of council for Ms. Fraser or any of the team? No, perfect. I will turn it back perhaps to Mr. Osmond. Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Do you want to shut off your mic when you walk away?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, let me thank CEO Fraser for a wonderful job, and she's in this evening because she's outside of the community service realm here. You know, we let her in tonight, and she's covered things off really well. I just want to speak just for a quick second on the last comment. I want to say that if you recall, we brought the actual crossing guard piece into the past council. And we updated the whole project and the whole program, and all of that work behind that program, moving this forward. And there's a lot of things moving, a lot of evolution going on with the crossing guards. Was taken on. We realigned a few things, and Darla made a comment that she's CEO of the library, answering to the board, and she answers to the GM of community services on crossing guards. But she took it on and never blinked, and full force forward. And she's crossed a lot of bridges in the last number of months to get where she is with all the success we've been having. This warrant thing, it's early days, you know, Councillor Andrews, but it's a lot of work behind it. But we got to do the work for the safety of our children, parents, and so on and so forth. And finally, on the OPP question, we have a great relationship. I know Darla can call not just for the crossing guards, but she calls the community police, and they come and deal with everything to do with libraries that we have issues with from time to time, and also with crossing guards. And I know Tina has almost a one-on-one relationship with the OPP officers, and it's really good to see that happening. And I think what it goes down to, we're going to hear more about this as we go through the next couple of days, is there's a lot of collaboration going on that we don't really talk about a lot. We want to get it more collaboration, but we have some real great successes happening in the community, and I think you've heard some of it here tonight. But a lot of collaboration and partnerships. And there's a lot of support from one agency to another. And from a town perspective, I think I see a lot of this where we are coming together and we're trying to work out something. The Poppy program was a wonderful one. It's a great issue. But the group that's missing here is that we also had a huge conversation with the Legion. And they came right to the table and said, yeah, we want to be involved. And it was new to them. So it was something that really, you know, kind of generated a new interest. So lots of great things going on in libraries, and The elevator's going well, on target, so it's all going well, so thank you. I think that's it for this evening. We finished a little early because the strat plan was a little early. We're on schedule now, so in terms of timeframes, and that's it for us for this evening. We're back again tomorrow at 4, and we'll pick it up there. Thank you.
Perfect. Before we end, we do just need a motion to confirm the bylaw, the confirmatory bylaw, that the bylaw listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. It's the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its council meeting held tonight, November 23rd, 2022. Can I have a motion? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Stevens. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Andrews, Deputy Mayor Taylor. And a vote. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Have a wonderful evening. See everybody tomorrow at 4. Thank you.